We'll try to see if we can locate him.
Good morning, good morning, Judge Edie. This is ASG Tortorella, and I'll be handling positions 5 and 6 today.
All right, very good.
Good morning, all.
Good morning.
Deputy Francois in courtroom 2.
Yes,
Do you know exactly where that inmate is house at that they can log on at this time? Or you can get the
They
word out to
should.
them?
they're doing, the other officer is doing different floors on the floor, so I'm not sure what floor he's gonna start off with, but when he pops up, you can let him know. It's Officer Glanton.
Okay, I appreciate that.
You're welcome.
Thank you.
What do you do with these checks?
What you mean? No,
Miss Monica, on the iPhone, this is the courts. We are having a delay in start of time. Can you please mute your phone? We will get with you. And can you please put your full name on your screen? Change the iPhone to your last name so we know who you are to address you when courts get started, please.
I'm sorry. I don't really know how to do that.
Okay, well, just let me know what your last name is and I can change that for you now.
Ellington,
Ellington, who are you here for today?
Miss LaTanya Johnson.
Okay, thank you.
Right. Good morning, ladies and gentlemen. My name is Judge Law, and we're going to commence with our Fulton State all-purpose calendar. This is a criminal misdemeanor calendar in which individuals who have already been accused and of one or more misdemeanor offenses. Their cases were, most of them were addressed at an initial appearance, and most of them, if not all, have already had bonds set on them. If you are a defendant who has an open active misdemeanor case against you in the state court of Fulton County, I'm going to be addressing your cases on a one-on-one basis. So please remember your rights. The first right is the right to remain silent about the facts of the case. Any statements that you make about the about the alleged facts of your case, your statements can and will be used against you. Just remember, this is a live recorded proceeding that's also being live streamed. So please do not make any statements without the advice of your counsel. You have a right to an attorney. You cannot afford one. We have attorneys from the Public Defense Office, as well as the Conflict Defense Office, who would be able to represent you. I know that we have most of the attorneys from the Public Defense Office. I'm not sure about the Conflict Defense, but we'll see as we address each of these cases. Are we beginning with courtroom 2?
me, Judge, before we get started, and also let you know that Judge Edie's on the line to take a plea with position 5 and 6.
Oh,
With the
let's,
litigation manager, I've been trying to search for that defendant. Apparently, they have not logged on in the area that they are at this
All right.
time.
thank you for that. Good morning, Judge Edie. Let's see if the positions 5 and 6 are available. Good morning, Francois.
Good morning, Judge Law.
All right, do we have Mr. David Bonney and Rico Brown available in courtroom 2?
Say the names again.
Position 5 is David Christopher Bonney. And
Judge,
position,
that's not correct. Position 5 should be Miles Bryant. Miles.
oh, I'm sorry.
Miles
Let
Bryant.
me. Oh, okay, sorry, a lot of
You got the right
calendars in front of
calendar.
me. Okay, position 5, let me repeat that name, is
5 and 6.
Miles Bryant. For both 5 and 6, Miles Bryant. Is he in
Yes.
courtroom 2?
He's not in courtroom 2. He's on another floor. Officer Glanton will be doing him.
Okay, is Officer Glanton available presently?
Yes.
There's President Medical.
Okay. Is that the individual in the medical unit?
That is not Mr.
ma'am.
Bryant.
Can we get a breakout session to start on Thornton with Public Defender Howard? And after we get done with this case, I can go up to the 4th floor to get Brian.
Okay. Mr. Derek Howard, are you available?
I am, Judge.
Or you want to break out with the medical unit? Yes?
Yes, just quick breakout, Judge.
Okay. Katrina, could you please place medical and Derek Howard in a breakout room?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, and then we're going to get, and Ms. Lucas, good morning. You are the litigation manager for Judge Edie, yes?
Yes, that is correct. Good morning, Judge
Okay.
Lau.
As soon as they have Miles Bryant available, is that the only case that Judge Edie needs to address?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay. I don't know whether he's available at the present time. I'm trying to keep up with all the screens on the Zoom panel. So as soon as they bring Miles Bryant to a panel, the only issue is I don't know if he has a, he's been conflicted out of PD's office, and I don't have a conflict counsel. Do I have an appointed conflict counsel available on the Zoom? All right, I don't.
Judge, are you referring to Mr. Miles Bryant?
Yes.
I represent Mr. Miles Bryant.
Okay, so
I'm here
Miss,
only for his case this morning.
I see. All right, so Clarissa St. Flex. So Francois, as soon as Miles Bryant's available, Judge Edie will be able to address that case, okay?
No problem.
All right, thank you.
You're welcome.
Ms. Lucas, I don't know if Judge Edie is signed on yet, but could you please let him know that as soon as Mr. Miles Bryant's available, we'll be able to address that case?
Yes, Judge Edie is assigned on into the session, Judge Lau.
Okay, thank you. All right.
Thank you.
So Francois, courtroom 2, who do we have presently?
This is position 27, Mr. Towns.
Okay. Mr. Markey Towns, he has one case, and we are addressing 19 CR 009-010Y. Mr. Marquis Towns is accused of 2 counts of criminal trespass from May 25th, 2018. Mr. Towns, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your counsel is going to be, who is representing Mr. Marquis Towns?
That's gonna be Mr. Howard, Your Honor.
Oh, Mr. Howard's in the breakout room. Is Ms. St. Flex and Mr. Howard, is he our only PD?
Good morning, Judge. I'm Zach Finling.
And which cases are you representing, Mr. Finley?
Yes, Judge, I am 1 through 15
Okay,
and the add-ons.
and the add-ons, okay.
Yes, ma'am.
Francois, if you have anyone from positions 1 through 15 and/or the add-on cases, we can address those until Mr. Howard's available.
Okay, this is position 8, Mr. Fambro.
All right. Let's see if we can start with that. Mr. Loreco Fambro is got a case 22 CR 003-516Y. Mr. Fambro has got multiple counts of terroristic threats brought against him from a June 3rd, 2022. Specifically, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 counts of terroristic threats. Mr. Fambro, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is Mr. Zach Findling. Mr. Findling, as I understand, this is position number 8, and we are going to arraign this case. Is that correct?
That's correct, Judge. We're going to arraign this case and address bond, please.
All right. So, Mr. Fambro, and would you waive a reading of the accusation, Mr. Findling?
I do, Judge.
Mr. Fambro, you've been accused of 5 separate misdemeanor offenses. They are all terroristic threat charges. They allegedly occurred on June 3rd of 2022 in Fulton County, Georgia. Upon your entry of a not guilty plea to these charges, the case will be scheduled for trial before a judge or a jury in the future. At the time of the trial, you are legally presumed to be innocent, and the prosecution has the complete burden to prove the charges against you beyond a reasonable doubt. If the prosecution does succeed, you could be convicted of 1 or more of these charges. Upon conviction, you will be sentenced to up to a year in prison and or up to $1,000 fine for each convicted offense. Given this information, how do you plead? If we could unmute courtroom 2, please. Mr. Fambro, given this information, how do you plead?
Not guilty.
All right, sir. Your case has been arraigned and it will be scheduled for a trial. At the present time, you do have a surety bond with a stay away. Mr. Spindling, what is the basis for a modification?
Yes, Judge. Do you want me to go into my, can I start?
Go ahead.
Okay, yes, Judge. Yes, Your Honor. So I am asking for a bond modification on behalf of Mr. Fambro. As you probably see, Mr. Fambro's current bond is a $2,500 surety bond. So that is $500 for each charge of terroristic threats. Now, Judge, I know obviously this is not an evidentiary hearing, but you know, I did see that in the affidavit for arrest / probable cause, it is 5 lines, and 3 of those lines are what I'm about to say. Mr. Fambro, this is in quotes, was asking about the other patrons' family members in a creepy way. So he was asking about their family members in a creepy way, and then said, he said that he wanted justice and that today that would serve, while shaking his head as the elevator went to different floors. And then it said that he blocked their, so it says that I can't even make this up. It says in a creepy way. I don't really see where the terroristic threats are. I talked to Mr. Fambro. He adamantly says this was a huge misunderstanding. He was in the elevator on the way to get a poverty affidavit for himself. So he was actually being active in his life. And he said simply, he did ask how their family members were doing. It literally says on the probable cause in a creepy way, which I'm not sure what that means. He said, listen, I'm a technician by trade. I spend my work life in people's houses with kids, with people by themselves. And he's consistently had that job and he's never been fired for, he said, I consistently ask people how their day is doing. That's just in my blood. In fact, he asked me how my day was doing as soon as I sat down. So once again, Judge, he does have community ties. He has lots of family here. He is not a flight risk because no one is more upset about this charge than he is. And he is eager to settle this. So he's definitely not a flight risk. He will be at court. And I am asking for a signature bond on behalf of Mr. Fambro, Judge.
All right. Is it Ms. Mitchell or Ms. Tortorello?
Ms. Tortorello, Your Honor.
All right.
Your Honor, the state's asking for the bond amount to remain the same. It's currently at $2,500 and it's in surety and for the conditions to remain the same. The reason being, Your Honor, is this defendant poses a risk to public safety, and not only that, but probable intimidation of witnesses, as he knows where these victims work at the courthouse. So just to go over the facts, because I understand opposing counsel was saying he doesn't, he was just questioning about the whether there was enough probable cause. So
Yeah, since I
there-
set the original bond, I'm familiar with the facts. If you could just address the facts that you believe are in dispute.
Yes, Your Honor. So as far as the threats, the witness statements here state that the staff members were inside the elevator and the defendant asked about their family members in a creepy way. Miss Ernell Winfrey said she got in the elevator to go to her office, and she was in the elevator with one other staff member, and the Sonia Ward, Jackie Peterson, Siri Patel, and Simone Hilton. Miss Peterson and Miss Hilton noticed that when the defendant entered the elevator and the elevator's door closed, the defendant did not press a floor button. And after she and the staff members did, Miss Peterson then asked the defendant what floor he was going to, and the defendant responded where justice was served. Miss Peterson and Miss Hilton observed the defendant block the elevator door with his body and face the victims while crossing his arms. Miss Peterson advised the defendant, then said justice was going to be served today and that he would not stop until all of them were broken. Miss Peterson said the defendant then began to ask about their families by saying, "How are your children, your husbands?" Miss Winfrey also heard the defendant ask each of the staff members whether they were good and whether their families were good. Miss Winfrey said the defendant appeared to not have a destination, and when they reached the 7th floor, she and the other staff members got off the elevator and the defendant got off behind them. And then that's where Miss Winfrey and the staff members immediately informed law enforcement of this man's presence on the 7th floor. He also poses a risk of reoffending. He has 10 cycles on his record. He was arrested for battery on July 6, 2016. And out of College Park, but this was dismissed by Fulton County DA. He does pose also a risk of failing to come to court, as he has a 2018 FDA in Fulton County. The victim was contacted, Miss Hilton, who remembers what occurred, and she said she felt nervous and scared and was more worried about whether the defendant would actually attack her, Your Honor. And for this reason, Your Honor, we do feel that the $2,500 surety bond should remain the same. Nothing further.
Which victim was allegedly blocked from leaving the elevator?
They all witnessed, Your Honor, that upon the defendant entering the elevator, he stood in front of the elevator's doors with his arms crossed.
So when the doors opened, he did not block anyone from leaving?
Correct. It was just his stance and his demeanor.
And-
Okay. Anything else?
Nothing else, Your Honor.
And,
All
and Judge, if I may, as we heard, the 2016 battery was dismissed. In an elevator, there's only one exit, and it's at the door. He says this was a huge misunderstanding. Once again, not an evidentiary hearing, but it's safe to say there's room for a misunderstanding in kind of what we're seeing here. But that's it. Thank you, Judge.
All right. I'll reduce the bond in half. Each count is going to be reduced in half. His total bond is going to be $1,250. And is going to be an issue as to whether, an issue of fact as to whether the alleged victims felt they were directly being threatened, or whether Mr. Fambro was just engaging in some kind of polite conversation, according to him. That's an issue of fact that has to be resolved by the trier of fact. I originally set the bond with the impression that at the initial appearance that Mr. Fambro deliberately blocked their exit from the elevator. But it appears now that he just stood in front of the elevator while the doors were shut, but it doesn't appear to have blocked their egress from the that particular elevator. All right. The same condition applies, that if he enters any of the courthouse facilities, any of them in Fulton County, that he must notify law enforcement and that he has to be escorted to wherever he needs to go. He cannot walk around the facility willy-nilly on his own. He must be escorted by law enforcement at all times. Thank you.
Understood. Thank you, Judge. And I just want to, so each of the surety bonds were cut in half, is that correct?
Correct.
Okay.
Mhm.
Thank you, Judge.
And no drugs, no alcohol, no weapons. You can submit the proposed bond modification order to April Champion at her email address.
Perfect. Thank you.
All right. Is Mr. Miles Bryant available? Francois?
Judge, I'm gonna be the officer that gonna be going floor to floor, so we can just do Thornton. After Thornton, he can be available. I gotta go to the floor.
All right, please let us know. Judge Edie is on hold, okay?
Judge, I think he's saying if you take care of medical, he will be able to go and get the.
Understood. Thank you. Courtroom 2, your next case?
Position 12, Mr. Harris.
We have Akeem Harris accused of loitering and prowling from May 23rd, 2022. Mr. Harris, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is going to be Mr. Zach Findling. This is position number 12, and this is going to be an arraignment. Do you waive a reading of the accusation, Mr. Findling?
I do, Judge.
All right. Mr. Harris, you've been accused of loitering and prowling on May 23rd, 2022. Based on this accusation, you are legally presumed innocent, and upon your entry of a not guilty plea, the case will be scheduled for trial. At the time of the trial, the state has the complete burden to prove the charge against you beyond a reasonable doubt and to overcome your legal presumption of innocence. If they succeed, you could be convicted and sentenced to up to a year in prison and or up to $1,000 fine. Given this information, how do you plead?
Not guilty.
Your case has been arraigned and it will be further notice for trial. Mr. Findling, what's your argument for bond?
Oh, yes, Judge. Excuse me, sorry. As of right now, his bond is a $500 surety bond. So it is that $50, give or take, plus tax. That's keeping him in. Mr. Harris has a passion, and he has been pursuing his passion in multimedia arts, so photography, cinematography, and has worked in the restaurant industry, and he hopes to continue doing that once he gets out. He does have a mailing address locally, Judge. He assured me that he would return to court. I am asking for a signature bond on his behalf, as he clearly cannot make that $500 surety bond. It's been 10 days now. And he said he's nowhere closer to making that, and he has no one that's capable or able to help him. So that is why, Judge, I am asking for a signature bond on Mr. Harris's behalf.
All right. And how do we contact him? He is residentially challenged.
Yes. So he did. So I do have an address for him. He said once he gets a phone number, he will get that. We'll make sure he gets that to the court. I do have his mom's address, or sorry, excuse me. I do have his mom's phone number. But he assured me that he would get in contact with court once he gets a phone, and we'll get a phone once he gets out.
All right, thank you. Is it Ms. Tortorella?
Yes, Your Honor.
Right.
So the state is asking for the bond amount to remain the same. It's a $500 surety, and for the conditions to remain the same. In this case, Your Honor, the defendant was identified inside the location. He was at the back. He was sleeping under a Versace barber's cape. When the officers detained the defendant, he advised he was only inside the location to get away from the rainy weather. And the defendant said he is homeless as well. He had no intention of committing any type of crime while inside the location. The witnesses advised the officers the defendant did not have permission to be inside their business. However, they did not believe he stole anything from their business. And this occurred in Fulton County, Georgia. He does pose a risk of reoffending, given his record. He has one cycle out of Florida, one cycle out of the U.S. Virgin Islands. He was arrested for trespass out of Fort Lauderdale, Florida in 2014, and in 2013 he had a DUI arrest in the U.S. Virgin Islands. A recent theft by shoplifting arrest, April 11th, 2022, by the Atlanta Police Department. Given this, Your Honor, he poses a risk of reoffending while out on bond. We do feel like a $500 surety is more than reasonable for this defendant.
All right. Bond is set at $2,000. Is a signature bond through the jail. He is to stay 200 yards away from that barber shop at 878 Cleveland Avenue in East Point, Georgia. He's not to be seen on their parking lot, on the sidewalks. Is that in a strip mall? If that's location in a strip mall, he has to stay away from that entire strip mall.
It seems like it is, Your Honor. In the fact pattern, it state that the victims or the location had witnesses, like neighboring witnesses. So it does seem like it was in the strip mall.
Yeah, so he's to stay away from that entire strip mall, the parking lot, the sidewalks, everything. If he's out there, and he'll be arrested again and brought back. So you said we have his mother's information and contact information. Could you put that in the chat, please, to, well, April, will you be able to take it and update it? Yeah. If you can put in the chat to April Champion. I
Okay,
think she's under LM.
okay, perfect. I'll send that right now.
Okay, and send the proposed to bond fight bond order. Thank you.
Okay, will do. Thank you, Judge.
Right. Judge, I have an announcement. I think you all were talking about Mr. Thornton's case.
Yes,
Briefly.
Mr. Howard?
Judge, we spoke and, we just had some discussions about, what we want him to do going forward. So we don't need to bring him back out. It's just gonna continue to be reset to see how he progresses.
All right, so Mr. Thornton's case is going to be reset to what date?
We can do 7, let's see, what is that? Judge, we can do July the,
He's on the competency calendar.
July the 7th will be fine, Judge.
All right, thank you.
All right, thank you.
All right, so I guess, Officer Glanton at medical?
Judge,
Right.
his way to go to the floor, the guy that you guys need, Mr. Bryant.
Okay.
Miles Bryant, he's on his way there to that
All
floor.
right, so Miles Bryant is on the way, so we will address courtroom 2, and that is Mr. Bryant, and that's, what position number was that?
He's positions 5 and 6 on the calendar, Your Honor.
Okay,
Judge, did you hear me? Because the screen froze up.
who's in courtroom 2?
Judge, that's Mr. Thornton. So Deputy Francois, we're fine. We're gonna reset him to July 7th.
You're gonna reset who? I was trying to say that the Zoom had froze, so I was trying to explain that Mr. Officer Glanton is on his way to go get Mr. Browse, what is the name?
Mr. Miles.
Yes, Mr. Miles. He's on the way to that floor to do him next.
Yeah, we heard that part. Great, thank you. And
Right now,
Mr. Thornton, he may be sent back. We will address his case on July 7th at 9 a.m.
okay, so we're down for position 14. Okay.
Correct. Thank you.
Go ahead, you can have a seat.
That's on the competency.
Mr. Beatty, this is position, Mr. Beatty.
Sorry, Judge, this is Ms. Lewis. Can I clarify the case that y'all was just talking about was position number 22 on the competency counter? Mr. Thornton?
Yes.
Okay. I thought she was saying position 14, but.
Yeah, I think it was just, no, it's position 22 on the competency calendar, and that's reset to July 7. Okay? So we have courtroom 2, we have Mr. Bailey, I heard. Bailey, Dontravius Bailey, is that correct?
That's correct, Judge.
All right.
Yes.
Position
Judge.
number 2 is Mr. Dontravius Bailey, who is accused of possession of a pistol by an individual under the age of 18 allegedly from June 1st, 2022 in Fulton County, Georgia. Mr. Bailey, your case number is 22 CR 003459B. You've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is going to be Mr. Zach Findling. This case was initially accused on or about June 1st, and I was the one who set the bond, I believe. And so we're going to arraign the case. Do you waive a reading of the accusation, Mr. Findling?
I do, Judge, and I'm not sure if in the announcements I put, we need a dress bond, but we do not. So
We do
this would
not.
just, we do not, so this will just
No.
be arraigned.
That was me. That was me. Sorry, my bad. It's just being arraigned. Okay.
Yes, it's me.
All right. So Mr. Beatty has been accused of a misdemeanor offense of possession of a pistol or revolver by an individual under the age of 18. Mr. Beatty, this is a misdemeanor offense, and upon your entry of a not guilty plea, the case will be scheduled for trial. At the time of trial, the prosecutor has the complete burden to prove the charge against you beyond a reasonable doubt and to overcome your legal presumption of innocence. If the state succeeds, you could be convicted to up to a year in prison and or up to $1,000 fine. Given this information, how do you plead? Francois, if you could unmute, please.
Yes.
Given this information, how do you plead, Mr. Beatty?
Not guilty.
All right, your case has been arraigned and it will be further notice for trial before a judge or a jury. Thank you.
Okay, you're done. You're done. Next is position, he's an add-on 1, Mr. Bahan.
All right,
And I put in the chat, so he needs a sign language interpreter, and I need to speak in a breakout room if possible with him and the sign language interpreter.
and that's just for Mr. William Boham, right?
Yes, Judge.
All right. All right. Good morning, Mr. Baum. My name is Judge Law. This is case 22 CR 003409C. And Mr. Findling, I believe we addressed this case at the initial appearance. Mr. Baum is familiar with the charge brought against him, the type of bond that's been issued. Francois, Mr. Findling needs to speak to his client with the assistance of the sign interpreter. Is there a way that he can be placed in a separate courtroom so that we can put them in a breakout?
I'll wait till my other officer comes back, till Officer Norris comes back, because I'm in the courtroom right now by myself. So when he comes back, then I can ask him to go to a different courtroom.
Okay. Mr. Baum, your attorney needs to speak to you confidentially. So we need to place you in a separate room so that the three of you can communicate via Zoom without any of us being present. Do you understand?
Nodding affirmatively.
All right.
I understand.
Thank you. Francois, we'll take the next case, please.
You can go 4 North.
Yeah, 5 and 6. Brian.
Okay, thank you. All right, Ms. Lucas, we have Mr. Miles Bryant, positions 5 and 6 at 4 North. And Mr. Bryant, just to advise you, you have a right to remain silent. Anything you say in open court, your statements can and will be used against you. You have a right to an attorney, and representing you is Ms. Clarissa St. Flanks. Ms. Lucas, I will let Judge Edie preside over the, once he's on, so I can step down. Judge Edie, are you on the Zoom?
Yes, I just texted him, Judge, and he's coming back on now.
Okay. Good morning, Judge Edie.
Good morning, Judge Law.
All right, I'm going to step down. We have Mr. Miles Bryan on the panel listed as 4 North.
All right,
Thank
let's
you, sir.
see if I can identify him on the screen. All right. Ms. St. Flex, are you here on the screen?
Yes, Your Honor, I am.
All right. And Ms. Tolarelli,
Yes, Your Honor.
you are here for the state.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. The party's ready to proceed in this matter, Ms. St. Flex. The state, y'all ready to proceed?
Yes, Your Honor.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Let's start with hearing from the state first.
Yes, Your Honor. So this would be a global offer. So I'm starting with case number 17 CR 021508Y. For carrying a weapon without a license, it's the recommendation is 12 months, served 201 days. Credit for time served, 201 days. Balance probated, a gun safety class. For the defendant to forfeit his weapon, to stay away from 1700 Abner Court. For the record, that's A, B as in boy, N-E-R. No firearms or weapons. For the obstruction charge, 12 months, served 201 days. Credit for time served, 201 days, balance suspended, concurrent with the first count. For discharge of a firearm, it will merge with the reckless conduct charge. For reckless conduct, 12 months, served 201 days, credit for time served, 201 days, balance probated, gun safety classed, again, to forfeit the weapon, to stay away from the incident location, no further contact with Sandra Eagle, traditional spelling, no firearms or weapons, and it will run consecutive to carrying a weapon without a license charge. For case number 20 CR 001075Y, that case will run consecutive to 17 CR 021508Y. For the DUI, it's 12 months, balance probated, $300 fine, 40 hours of community service, risk reduction course, alcohol, drugs, evaluation, and treatment, and 1 victim impact panel. The state will no process the remaining charges, nothing further.
All right. Ms. St. Flex, does the defense stipulate, first of all, to a factual basis for the charges as they were announced?
Yes, Your Honor, for both cases.
All right. Let me hear from you now regarding anything regarding this plea.
Yes, Your Honor, we would ask that Mr. Bryant is allowed to report remotely and that the first 4 months of his probation fines are waived. He's been in, of course, for over 200 days. So at this point, he needs some time to get back on his feet and to pay for these classes that these terms require. We also want to note for the record that the gun that's requested to be forfeited is already in the possession of the sheriff's office, and he does understand that he's relinquishing his right to that gun. So there's no gun for him to come and turn in. That gun is already in their possession. And additionally, Your Honor, we request that once his terms are completed, that his probation goes to non-reporting, as the prosecution does want him to be monitored on a probation, but we have agreed that, well, I should say that we've agreed, but we are requesting that it's now reporting. So he's not required to pay fines for over 2 years.
Right? Mr. Miles Bryant, can you hear the court? All right. Mr. Bryant, you heard the terms of the negotiated plea as they were announced. Do you want this court to accept your plea under those terms as they were announced and negotiated between your lawyer and the state?
Correct, sir.
All right, repeat that answer.
Correct, sir.
All right. So is that a yes?
Yes, sir.
All
Correct.
right.
Yes, sir.
Mr. Bryant, are you tendering these pleas freely and voluntarily?
Yes, sir.
I will find then that your plea is tendered freely and voluntarily. I will further find a factual basis exists for the charges based on the stipulation by your lawyer. And I will accept the negotiation terms and make it the order of this court that your sentence will be as follows. Under 17 CR 021508Y, to the charge of carrying a weapon without a license, will sentence you to 12 months to serve 201 days. That 201 days is commuted time served. Balance on 12 months will be on probation. You will contend a gun safety class as a condition of probation. And you must forfeit the weapon. I understand that it's already been turned in, but you will not be able to get that back. And you stay away from 1700 Abner Court and have no further weapons of possession of alcohol or weapons. On the obstruction charge, the 12 months to serve 201 days as well, commuted to time served. Balance will be suspended. And the discharging of firearm with the merger will merge with the other count, reckless conduct. The reckless conduct, you'll be sentenced to 12 months on probation to serve 201 days. That 201 days is commuted to time served. Balance on probation of the 12 months. Conditions of that probation, you must complete a gun safety class, forfeit the weapon, same as the other count, and stay away from 1700 Abner and have no further contact with Sandra Eagle. Is there anything amongst you and Sandra that will require you to have contact with her?
Your Honor, I did speak with him about that. That is a family member, but he did tell me that he has no issue with no contact during his probation.
All right. You're not possessing alcohol or weapons? And this is to run consecutive to carrying a weapon without a license charge. Now, on that particular 17 CR charge, Ms. St. Flex, did I get the terms down as you understood them to be?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. With regard to 20 CR 001075Y, and this is to run concurrent with the other charges in 17 CR 021508Y.
Your Honor, this charge is actually to run consecutive to the 17 CR case.
That's correct. Did I miss?
I believe we heard concurrent, but that's fine.
Very well. It should be consecutive. And that's the DUI count will be 12 months on probation. condition of probation to pay a $300 fine, perform 40 hours of community service, complete risk reduction, alcohol drug evaluation, any treatment that's deemed necessary, and 1 victim impact panel. And the remaining charges in that case will be normal prost. And as requested, he may report to probation remotely, and I will waive the first 4 months of probation fees. Did I complete those terms, Ms. St. Flex, as negotiated?
The only thing remaining, Your Honor, is we requested that upon completion of the terms, his probation is non-reporting.
All right. And once he completes the terms of probation, probation may become non-reporting.
And just for the record, Your Honor, this defendant does have 2 open cases before Your Honor. That's 19 CR 008-770Y and 19 CR 008-793Y.
So noted. And anything further, Ms. St. Flex, on the 2 cases, 17 CR and the 20 CR this morning that we just addressed?
Nothing further, Your Honor.
Anything further on those 2 particular charges? State, Ms. ASG, pronounce your last name for me so I won't keep.
Tortorello.
Tortorello.
Yeah.
All right.
Actually, I do have.
Further?
Yes, Your Honor. I was wondering if ASG Waldrop has already submitted those no pros forms to you, or if I need to submit those.
Ms. Lucas?
No, we have not received them. So if you can send them over, that would be great.
Okay, thank you.
Thank
Nothing
you.
further.
And Ms. Lucas, you received the plea paperwork I uploaded and sent to you.
Yes, I did. The only thing I'm going to need to receive from you, Ms. St. Flex, is the probation information sheet, since the probation intake officer is not available to get him signed up for probation today.
Okay. If I could be put in the breakout room to verify his address, that would be great.
All right.
Miss Lewis, is that something that you can do?
Yes, I can.
All right. Anything further on this matter, these matters, Ms. Lucas?
No, Judge. That would be all.
All right. All right. That will be the order of the court.
Thank you, Judge Edie, Ms. Lucas.
You're very welcome. Thank you so much, Judge Lau. We really appreciate you allowing us to appear today.
My pleasure. Thank you, Judge Edie. You all have a good morning. Thank you,
All
Ms.
right.
Lucas.
Thank you, Judge Law.
You as well. Thank you.
Good to
All
see
good.
you.
Thank you.
Bye-bye.
All right, we're going to resume with courtroom 2. We still have Mr. William Bohm on the at the seat. Francois, he will need to be placed in a separate room to talk to his attorney in order to maintain confidentiality.
Yes, we're working on that, Judge.
Thank you. Who do we have next, please?
This is gonna be position 11, Mr. Gullen.
Hi, Your Honor.
Position number 11. Good morning, sir.
Good morning.
All right, Mr. Robert Gullion, his case number is 22 CR 003492G, accused of criminal trespass, willful obstruction of a law enforcement officer. Mr. Gillian, you've been advised of your right to remain silent. Your attorney is Mr. Zach Finling. Mr. Finling, this is going to be a non-negotiated plea with the fine at issue, correct?
Correct, Judge.
All right, so Mr. Gillian, what's going to happen first is the prosecutor is going to let me know what is the recommended sentence if you decide to plead guilty to these charges, and then your attorney will give me an alternative recommendation. I will let you know which recommendation I will accept before we move any further in the case. Ms. Tortorello, have you all had any reconsideration on the fine or to convert that to community service hours?
We've discussed prior to the court, Your Honor, and we have not come to an agreement.
All right. Do you have any objection to converting it to community service hours?
I'll leave that to you, Your Honor. It's under the obstruction charge.
Yeah, I was thinking if there's no objection, I would convert it to 30 hours of community service, if that's something that the defendant would like to accept.
It would be, Judge.
All right. Ms. Tortorella, then tell me your recommendation based on the court's ruling.
Yes, Your Honor. So the recommendation for criminal trespass is 12 months, serve 11 days. Credit for time served, 11 days, balance probated, 40 hours of community service, and to stay away from the incident location at La Quinta Hotel, 575 Holcomb Bridge Road in Roswell. And for the obstruction, it's 12 months served, 11 days, credit for time served, 11 days, balance probated. As requested by Your Honor, 30 hours of community service concurrent to count 1. Nothing further from the state.
All right, thank you. Mr. Findling, if your client would like to accept that, we can move on.
Yes, Judge. Yes, we can
Mr.
move on.
Gillian, is that acceptable to you?
When I complete the community hours of service, the probation is it?
That is a matter I still have to address, but the question now is the fine.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. So, Mr. Gillian, please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear and affirm the testimony you provide will be the truth to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Findling? Yes, sir.
Yes, Judge. So yeah, once again, we do agree to the fine being converted, and would just ask that once he completes those conditions, if he could be non-reporting.
All right. I will wait. Yes, Ms. Tortorella?
I would have to read the facts, giving that this is a non-negotiated plea, Your Honor. Apologize.
Well, do we need to read the facts since, oh yeah, I guess because I made you all accept the 30 hours. Okay, go ahead, Ms. Tortorella.
I'm sorry. On June 3rd, 2022, Officer Christensen of the Roswell Police Department was dispatched to Studio 6 Motel at 9955 Old Dogwood Trail in Roswell. The complainant was a witness at La Quinta Hotel located near Studio 6 at 575 Holcomb Bridge Road in Roswell. Upon arrival, the officer located defendant Robert Gillen sleeping under a vehicle in the parking lot of Studio 6, where he had also been issued a criminal trespass warning in the past. Subsequently, the officer observed the defendant on the premises of La Quinta Hotel, where he had also been issued a criminal trespass from officers on February 8th, 2022. The defendant was detained and the officer went inside the hotel lobby to speak to the employee, Ramesh Patel. For the record, it's R as in Robert, A, M as in Mary, E, S, H, B as in boy, H, A, I, Patel is P, A, T, E, L. If the business wished to press charges for criminal trespass, Mr. Patel said he wished to press charges on behalf of the business. The officer went back to the defendant and ordered him to turn around and place his hands behind his back. The defendant began to pull away from the officer, and additional officers had to grab a hold of the defendant's arms to assist in handcuffing him. The defendant was arrested, and all these events did occur in Fulton County, Georgia. Your Honor, there's no relevant convictions, Your Honor, to be announced before this court. Nothing further.
All right. Okay, so Mr. Findling, you do stipulate to the factual basis, venue and ID, yes?
Yes, Judge.
Okay. With regards to probation, under the circumstances, I first need to ask one question. Is Mr. Gillian residentially challenged? I see an Alpharetta address.
Yes, he is residency challenged, and I did reach out to a social worker to try to get him information on housing.
All right. Do we have any contact information on him? Phone number, email?
So I
An
do.
alternative address?
I have his mom's phone number, and that is all I have for him right now. But I do have his mom's number.
Do we have an alternative address? What is it, Mr. Gillian?
9955 Old Dogwood Road.
What is that?
It's the hotel that I usually rent a room at.
Are you allowed back at that hotel?
I've been there for 20 years.
I'm asking you, are you allowed back at that hotel?
Yes, economy hotel.
So you have no criminal trespass warnings from that hotel?
Uh-uh.
All right, okay. So Mr. Robert Gillian, you've already been sworn. First of all, have you consumed any medication or alcoholic beverages?
No, Your Honor.
And have you understood the proceedings so far?
Yes, Your Honor.
And are you satisfied with the representation of your attorney?
Yes, Your Honor.
Now, if you, and when your conversations with your attorney, has it been explained to you that you'll be waiving your constitutional rights if you enter a plea today?
Yes, Your Honor.
And namely, those rights that you'll be waiving is the right to a trial before a judge or a jury, to have the assistance of counsel, to confront your accuser, examine witnesses, challenge the state's evidence, and have the state try to prove the charges against you beyond a reasonable doubt. Are you prepared to waive these rights?
Yes, Your Honor.
Are you entering a plea willingly, knowingly, and voluntarily?
Yes, Your Honor.
How do you plead to criminal trespass?
Guilty.
How do you plead to willful obstruction of a law enforcement officer?
Guilty.
On the criminal trespass and the, your sentence is 12 months, credit for time served 11 days, credit for time served 11 days. You'll be placed on probation where you will complete 40 hours of voluntary community service. And that voluntary community service must be done at any nonprofit agency, which is not a school and not a religious organization. You can do it at a food bank, you can do it at animal rescue, but not a school and not a religious organization. Do you understand?
Yes, Your Honor.
And you will stay away from the Studio 6 at 575 Holcomb Bridge Road in Roswell, Georgia. You're not allowed on that property, which includes their sidewalks, their parking lots, and especially their buildings. Understood? On the obstruction charge, the sentence is concurrent, 12 months to serve 11 days, credit for time served 11 days. Balance probated, you will complete an additional 30 hours of voluntary community service. So in total, you have 70 hours of voluntary community service to complete. I will waive your probation fees for the months of June, July, August, and September. That's 4 months.
What does that mean, Your Honor?
That means you don't have to pay probation fees for 4 months while you're reporting.
I thought it was being converted to community time served.
No, sir, you're reporting to probation every month while you try to finish,
Yes.
while you wrap up your voluntary community service.
Where's that? Do I be given that?
Probation will be at 132 Mitchell Street in Atlanta, Georgia. You will report to probation by next Tuesday. Today is Thursday, you'll report by next Tuesday.
Could it be any day?
By next Tuesday, you can report on Monday, you can report on Friday, you can report, don't report on Friday, they don't have the file yet. Then Saturday and Sunday, they're closed. You can report on Monday, you can report on, I think they don't take new probation cases, but that's so it'll have to be Tuesday.
Can I call them in advance?
No, you're gonna show up on Tuesday.
Yes, Your Honor.
Any other questions about your visit to probation? Next Tuesday, you show up. You'll be placed on probation. You must update your mailing address with the clerk and with the probation within 30 days from today. You can return to the La Quinta Inn at 9955 Dogwood Road only if there are no criminal trespass warnings against you.
Okay. Yes, Your Honor.
If there are any criminal trespass warnings against you with respect to that property, you are not allowed to return to that property.
Yes, Your
So I advise you to get a police officer to escort you to that location just to verify that you are not trespassed from that property. You are definitely trespassed from Studio 6, but you need an officer to escort you to La Quinta Inn to make sure that there are no trespass warnings. All right?
Yes, Your Honor.
During the 4 months, while you don't have to pay probation fees, you will get a job. And then after that, you'll be reporting to probation every month. You're not going to be on a non-reporting basis. You'll report every month.
What about traveling to Miami? Whatever if I move to Miami, because I'm trying to, I mean, that's the whole reason.
When do you plan to move to Miami?
I don't know, I have to talk to my mother about an address.
All right. You will need permission from the court to leave the state. So you need to talk to your probation officer, and then you need to talk to the PD and get permission from the court to allow your probation to be transferred to Florida if that's where your intended destination is. But we can only transfer it if we have a specific address and we know that you are living in that location before probation can be transferred. Otherwise, you are in Georgia and you report every month. So make sure you get a job by September so you can start paying probation fees from October onwards.
How much is that? I mean, that's
$50 a month.
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, thank you.
All right, you're done.
You go.
Also, Mr. Finley, when you get a chance, can you please call courtroom 2 to speak to Mr. Fabro, position 8?
Yeah, yes, I can. I know the sign language interpreter has to be done by 10:50, so I'm just hoping that we can get in that breakout room.
Okay.
As soon as I find out what room he's gonna be placing on here, no problem. Putting on a breakout room.
Francois, if we can put a,
Yeah, we're still trying to work on that as we speak.
I appreciate it. Could we have our next case?
23.
Thank you. Did you say number 3?
23.
23, thank you, sir. All right, we have position 23 at 4 South. Mr. Finley, you won't be able to talk to Mr. Baum while he's in courtroom 2, right? Too many people, right?
Mr. Finley's talking right now.
Okay, we are dealing with position 23. That's Kevin Lee Earl McLean. Is that correct? He's located at 4 South. Are you Mr. McLean?
Yes.
Thank you. Mr. McLean, we have case 19 CR 000-387D, in which you've been accused of simple battery domestic violence, hindering a person from making an emergency phone call, and battery domestic violence. The alleged incident date is January 11th, 2019. You have been advised, you have a right to remain silent. Anything you say in open court, your statements can and will be used against you. You have a right to an attorney, and representing you is Mr. Derek Howard. Mr. Howard, this is going to be a negotiated plea, correct?
Judge, well, the only, I guess, thing is the state, we're asking that to be entered as a NOLO. We didn't negotiate that agreement on that, but that's the only difference.
All right. And which charge is he entering a NOLO on?
On the battery family violence.
Mm-hmm. All right. Who do I have for pretrial? Ms. Harrison, good morning.
Good morning.
All right, we're dealing with position 23. Have there been any prior convictions for battery, domestic violence, or simple battery for Mr. McLean? Or anything of violence?
GCIC is not indicating any convictions.
Thank you. Ms. Mitchell, we have Mr. McLean who wants to enter a no contest to the battery domestic violence. Does the state have a position on that?
For the no contest, we're going to object, being that this case was family violence case and the defendant struck his girlfriend several times, grabbed her by the neck and slammed her on the ground, and then took her phone so she couldn't finish calling 911. So based on the alleged facts, the state will object to the NOLO.
All right. And part of the plea offer is no further contact with the alleged victim, correct?
Correct.
Okay. All right, this is going to be a non-negotiated plea with regards to the nature of the plea for battery domestic violence. Mr. McLean, I'm going to hear from the prosecution, then I'm going to hear from your attorney, after which I will make a decision as to whether I will accept a nolo contendere plea for the battery domestic violence. Please remember your right to remain silent. Ms. Mitchell?
Yes, Your Honor, the state's plea recommendation is as follows. So as count one will merge. Count two, hindering persons making a phone call will be 12 months to serve, 24 days, credit for time served, 12 days, balance probated. Count three, battery family violence will also be the same to run concurrent, along with the conditions of no further contact with Ms. Eris, spelled E-R-I-S, Kennedy, common spelling, a stay away from 2651 Rex Avenue Southwest, Atlanta, Georgia, FFIP, 40 hours community service, and no alcohol, drugs, and weapons. And the state's already stated our reasons as to our objection to NOLO, so that will be all, Your Honor. Thank you.
Thank you. Mr. Howard?
Judge, we stipulate the venue, ID, and a factual basis. We ask that you accept the plea as negotiated. We would ask that it be entered as a NOLO. As you heard, Mr. McLean does not have a history of violence. And a battery family violence has significant collateral consequences beyond just the plea, as it relates to housing, as it relates to job prospects and things of that nature. So we would ask, since he's never entered a NOLO plea, that he be allowed to enter a NOLO plea in this case with all the other requirements and conditions we've agreed to, Judge.
All right. And Mr. Howard, have you explained to Mr. McLean the consequences if he got a guilty plea on a battery domestic violence?
Yes, Judge. Yes.
Yeah, so he understands how difficult it will be to get housing, to get a job, and that if he's ever arrested again for battery domestic violence, it will automatically become a felony charge?
Right. We did discuss if it were a guilty plea, that would be the case, Judge.
All right. Given the age of the case, given the minimal history of the defendant, I will accept a guilty plea to the simple battery and hindering a person from making an emergency phone call, and a nolo contendere plea to the battery domestic violence.
And actually, the simple battery is going to merge, but yes. So it'll just be the battery.
It'll just be the battery and the CO, right? The simple battery will merge, correct? And so we're only talking about one victim, correct?
Yes, Judge.
Okay, so that will be a merge, yes. And Mr. McLean, do you still want to proceed with the plea?
Yes.
And Mr. Howard, do you stipulate to the venue and the ID?
We do, Judge.
All right. Mr. McLean, do you solemnly swear, raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear and affirm the testimony you provide will be the truth to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
You may put your hand down. Sir, have you consumed any kind of medication or alcohol recently?
No, ma'am.
Have you understood the proceedings so far?
Yes.
And are you satisfied with your attorney?
Yes.
And are you entering a plea willingly, knowingly, and voluntarily?
Yes, ma'am.
And if you decide to enter this plea, you will have to give up your constitutional right to go back to court, to have a trial, to have the assistance of counsel to challenge the state's case and evidence, to examine witnesses, confront your accuser, and have the state try to prove the charge against you beyond a reasonable doubt. Are you prepared to give up these rights?
Yes, ma'am.
How do you plead to battery domestic violence?
Plead guilty.
This is the one we do in the NOLO.
Oh,
how do you plead to battery domestic violence?
No contest.
Correct. How do you plead to hindering a person from making an emergency phone call?
No contest, right?
Nope, the other one.
Plead guilty.
Correct.
Yes.
All right. Your sentence is going to be concurrent for both charges. Is going to be 12 months to serve 24 days, credit for time served 12 days. If you have no other cases holding you at the jail, your time at the jail is concluded. You'll be released within 24 hours. You must report to probation by on Tuesday at 132 Mitchell Street. Do you understand?
Yes.
At that time, they will open a new probation case. You must confirm your residential mailing address with probation, and you must also update your residential mailing address with the clerk within 30 days of being released.
Yes, ma'am.
The reason being, you're not living with Miss Eris Kennedy. You have to stay You have to have no contact with Ms. Kennedy. You have to stay 200 yards away from her. You cannot communicate with her in any way, form, or manner, not even through a phone, through a third party, through an electronic device, or even on social media. Do you share any children with her?
I was just, yes, go ahead. They don't have any children.
No children, okay. Do you have any belongings at her location?
No.
Okay, so you have absolutely no reason to go back to her home. You are to stay away from 2651 Rex Avenue in Southwest Atlanta. And you are to enroll in a domestic violence intervention program within 60 days of being released. Understood?
Yes.
I will waive your probation fees for, let me see. Till the end of this year. All right, so you must complete your domestic violence intervention program by the end of this year. You will continue to report to probation. You don't have to pay probation fees until the end of this year. January 1st, 2023, if you're still on probation, you must continue to report and start paying probation fees. Understood?
Yes, ma'am.
And let me see. Oh, you also need to complete 40 hours of voluntary community service. And you can do that anytime while you're on probation. Just make sure it adds up to 40 hours. And you can do that at any nonprofit agency that is not a school and not a religious organization. Understood?
Yes, ma'am.
While you're on probation, no illegal drugs, no alcohol, no weapons, and no firearms. Do you have any questions about your sentence?
No, ma'am.
Best of luck, sir. Thank you. Okay, courtroom 2, who do we have, please?
Position 24, Mr. Merkel.
Thank you. We have James Merkel, case number 22 CR 003497G. Mr. Merkel has been accused of theft by taking on May 22nd, 2022. Mr. Merkel, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is Mr. Derek Howard. Mr. Howard, this is going to be a negotiated plea, yes?
Yes, Judge.
All right, Mr. Merkel, please raise your right hand if we can unmute. Do you solemnly swear and affirm the testimony you provide will be the truth to the best of your knowledge?
I do.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Mitchell, what's the recommendation for Mr. Merkel?
Your Honor, this is going to be 12 months to serve 30 days, credit for time served 15 days, balance probated, a stay away from 1075 Tuxedo Drive, Roswell, Georgia, a theft prevention course, a BHET, ADET, as agreed at STA, and 40 hours community service, and no alcohol, drugs, and weapons. Nothing further, Your Honor.
All right, Mr. Howard?
Yes, Judge, we stipulate to factual basis venue ID in this case. We ask that you accept the plea as negotiated. We would ask that probation fees be waived because there are a couple of items that he's going to have to expend funds for that he doesn't currently have. So we'd ask that probation fees be waived during the term of his probation, and that if he's able to get it done shorter than 12 months, that it be allowed to terminate.
Have you explained to him what BHET and ADET stands for?
Yes, yes,
Okay.
we discussed that, Judge.
All right. And any objection to a termination of probation, Ms. Mitchell, or would you prefer non-reporting or something else? I don't know.
Non-reporting, because we don't know how the ADAT and the BHET will turn out.
I'll go with non-reporting. I will waive probation fees for at least 4 months while he completes the anti-theft class and the evaluations. Is that acceptable, Mr. Howard?
Yes, Judge.
All right. Okay. We can unmute courtroom 2. Thank you. Mr. Merkel, have you consumed any kind of medication or alcohol recently?
No.
And have you understood the proceedings so far?
Well, what is it? What are the letters again?
Repeat.
What do those letters mean again?
BHET?
You remember the evaluations that we discussed last night that you'll
Yes.
have to, that's what that is.
Okay, so drug and alcohol evaluation and a mental health evaluation, right?
Okay, yeah, yes.
Okay.
All right. Have you understood everything now?
The theft prevention course, can I get the information to this, so like, right, you know where that's at or how to get done?
Yes, when you're on probation, they will give you a list of places where they hold these qualified classes, and you will be able to go there. You would have to pay for the class out of your own pocket, as well as the evaluations.
Do you know how much the theft prevention class is?
Honestly, I don't.
Okay, do you know where, am I going to Mitchell Street? Or
No,
what?
that's your probation office, 132 Mitchell Street.
Okay,
Have you ever understood everything so far now?
when is it I'm supposed to go there?
On Tuesday,
Okay, this coming Tuesday?
this coming Tuesday, no later than that, otherwise a probation warrant will be issued.
Okay, what's the address again?
132 Mitchell Street.
132 Mitchell Street. All right, I understand.
Good. Mr. Merkel, are you satisfied with the representation of your attorney?
Absolutely.
And are you entering a plea willingly, knowingly, and voluntarily?
I'm sorry?
The plea that you're entering to the charge of theft by taking, are you doing so willingly, voluntarily, and knowingly?
Yes,
By knowingly, meaning that you understand that if you take a plea today, you will have to give up your constitutional rights to have a trial before a judge or a jury.
I understand.
During that trial, you will not be able to confront your accuser, challenge the state's evidence, contest the charges being brought against you, and have the state try to prove the charge against you beyond a reasonable doubt. Are you prepared to give up these rights?
Yes,
How do you plead to one count of theft by taking?
guilty.
Your sentence is 12 months to serve, 30 days. Credit for time served, 15 days. If you have no other cases holding you at the jail, you will be released from the Fulton County Jail within 24 hours. You must report to probation next Tuesday before noon at 132 Mitchell Street in Atlanta, Georgia. You are not to return to 1075 Tuxedo Drive in Roswell, Georgia. You're to stay 200 yards away from that location.
Okay,
While on probation, you will complete one theft prevention class. You will also complete the evaluations that we have discussed, and you will complete 40 hours of voluntary community service. The voluntary community service must be done at any nonprofit agency, but not at a school and not at a religious organization. You can do it at a food bank, at an animal rescue, at Salvation Army, at Goodwill, but not a school and not a religious organization. Your fees will be waived for the next 5 months up to and including the end of September 2022. If you have not completed your conditions by the end of September, you will continue reporting to probation and start paying probation fees from October 1st, 2022. Otherwise, your probation will be non-reporting. While you're on probation, active or non-reporting, you're not to consume any alcohol, no illegal drugs, and you cannot possess a firearm or any other weapon. Do you understand, sir?
I understand.
All right, thank you and best of luck.
Thank you.
Position 14 and 15, Mr. Hell.
And Judge, for Mr. Bogham with the sign language interpreter, that case will not be handled today. I'm gonna have a evaluator meet with him.
All right, are we resetting it to next Thursday?
So we're gonna need a little bit more time, so probably reset at least a few weeks. I'm gonna have someone meet with him for an evaluation.
Give me a number of weeks or give me a
Okay.
date.
Yes, ma'am.
On June the 30th? That's 2 weeks out.
Yeah, we could do that, June 30th.
June 30th, and we'll need our sign interpreter. Case is reset to June 30th. Thank you.
May the
Thank you.
interpreter be dismissed, Your Honor?
Yes, thank you.
Thank you. Have a
very
good day.
much. You
Bye-bye.
too. Bye-bye. All right, I'm so sorry. We are on position 15 and 16 at courtroom 2.
That's 14 and 15.
I'm sorry, 14 and 15. This is Mr. Dustin Helm, Dustin Patrick Helm, case numbers 22 CR 002804J and 22 CR 003477J. Mr. Helm, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is going to be, is it Mr. Finley?
Yes, Judge.
All right, your counsel is Mr. Zach Finley. What's the announcement, Mr. Finley?
Yes, Judge. Ms. Tortorella and I did speak about this case before, and this is going to be time served, so it will be non-negotiated, just to address the fine.
And that's for the obstruction charge, Ms. Tortorella?
Correct, Your Honor.
And it'll be a total of 60 hours of voluntary community service for both cases, yes?
I
If he's
think
doing 60 hours, can I tack on another 30 hours? You know, I was going to ask that.
Your Honor, are you talking about the obstruction charge for position 14?
Yeah.
And you're asking if the state's okay with the 30 hours of community
Well,
service?
I know you're not okay, but you can either defer or you can say no objection.
I defer to the court, Your Honor.
All right. I'm going to convert the $300 fine to additional 30 hours to community service. So based on the alleged global offer, your client would have to do a total of 90 hours of community service, and he'll report to probation every month. Is that something he'd like to do?
Mr. Helm, does that sound good? Like I told you, it is going to be time served, jail time wise, but you will be on probation and have that fine converted to community service. Does that sound good?
Mr. Helm, we're talking to you. Can you hear us?
The screen had, the Zoom.
Frozen?
Yeah.
Okay. So Mr. Helm, instead of having to pay a fine, you would have to do a total of 90 hours, 90 hours of voluntary community service while you're on probation. You do not have to pay probation fees, but you'll report to probation every month. Is that something that you'd like to accept?
Yes, ma'am.
Mr. Finling, are you satisfied?
Yes, Judge.
All right. I'll deem this to be a negotiated plea based on our negotiations. And Mr. Helm, if you please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear and affirm the testimony you provide will be the truth to the best of your knowledge?
I do.
All right. We're going to first hear from the prosecutor as to what the recommended sentence is if you decide to plead guilty to the charges in both cases. The charges under case ending in 2804J are violations of pedestrian and roadway, pedestrian soliciting rides or business, disorderly conduct, and obstruction of an officer. The charge in position 15 ending in 3477J is pedestrian soliciting rides or business. Okay, Ms. Tortorella?
Yes, Your Honor, this is a global offer for case number 22 CR 002804J. The defendant's being charged with pedestrian and roadway, pedestrian soliciting, obstruction, and disorderly conduct. The state is moving forward with all charges. For the first count, pedestrian and roadway, 12 months served 20 days. I'm sorry, it was 50, I believe it was 15 days. Credit for time served, 15 days. Balance probated, 20 hours of community service to stay away from the incident location. And that's at Mansell Road and Georgia 400 southbound in Alpharetta, Georgia. That he'd do ADET, that a social worker visit him for placement for count 2. Soliciting rides, 12 months served, 15 days, credit for time served, 15 days, balance probated, stay away from the incident location. It'll run concurrent to count 1. For disorderly conduct, 12 months served, 15 days, credit for time served, 15 days, balance probated, and no contact with the officer in this case, which is Officer Jay Goodwin of the Alpharetta Police Department. And for the obstruction is 12 months served, 15 days, credit for time served, 15 days, balance probated, and 30 hours of community service as set by Your Honor. And all these counts will run concurrent. Following 22 CR 003477J will run concurrent to 22 CR 002804J. And that is 12 months. I believe he served 3 days, credit for time served, 3 days, balance probated, stay away from the incident location, which is Mansell Road at Georgia 400 in Alpharetta, 40 hours of community service. And again, for a social worker to visit him for housing and placement. And nothing further from the state.
All right, thank you. Mr. Finley?
Yes, Judge. And I just wanted to verify with Ms. Tortorello that he is getting for the pedestrian roadway, pedestrian soliciting rides, that it's going to be 3 days. We talked about it. You would ask for 3 days, I believe.
I apologize. I believe I flipped those. So, Your Honor, just to correct for the record, the credit for time served for his first case, 22 CR 002804J, it's 12 months served, 3 days, credit for time served 3 days on all those counts. Then for the following case, Your Honor, 22 CR 003477J, it's 12 months served, 15 days, credit for time served 15 days.
All right.
That's correct.
And does the 3 days apply to the disorderly conduct and obstruction?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay.
All right.
Mr. Finley, any other clarifications?
Nothing, Judge, just that the probation fees could be waived for Mr. Helm.
And what about this housing placement through the VET program? What are we talking about there?
So actually, I don't believe Mr. Helm is a veteran, so he wouldn't, that wouldn't relate to him.
All right, and how probation doesn't do this housing issue, so
Yeah, so
what were you all thinking of?
I did reach out to our social workers yesterday and asked for someone to get him housing information. I did say it would be a time served plea, so to get him information on housing
And-
before then.
Who will he contact?
So, oh, well, I'm gonna have,
Contact, I mean, how does he contact the services being offered through the social worker? I need to know, like, with probation, I know he has to go down to 132 Mitchell Street on Tuesday.
right.
With social worker, what's the protocol? What are the procedures?
The procedures are that they would get in contact with him before he's released and get him information on how to get him into housing. And I believe it is in the past, even when people have gotten time served deals, they've gotten.
Phone number for 3 years.
And Judge, Miss Burgess is on the line, so if we needed to connect, if she can talk with him now to give him that information, that'll be fine. A breakout room or a phone call to provide him with housing.
Ms. Burgess, are you available, please? Kia Burgess? All right. Hello, Ms. Burgess. All right. Before we proceed, Mr. Helm, do you have housing?
Ma'am.
All right. So Ms. Burgess is one of our qualified social workers with Fulton County, and you need to listen very carefully. Yes, Ms. Burgess, we have a defendant who might be released within the next 24 hours. How would he be contacted in order to get services for housing?
I would need to speak with him to see exactly information on possible placement. I mean, most now, if on release, shelters pretty much the only thing that would be to him right today, unless he
So
was-
you won't be going to the jail to visit him. He has to come to you or he has to contact you
Is he being released today? I mean, I'm
within
not sure.
24 hours.
Okay, I mean, I can try to see him today. I'm not sure he'll still be there.
Okay.
Or if he can come to our office in downtown also if he's released and needs help. So I can give him that information also.
Can you put that information in the chat so that it can go on the sentence sheet, like where he has to go?
Okay, I can give him my contact information. Yes, sure.
Yeah, you can put that in the chat, please.
Okay.
And please put that information to April Champion. If you look
I'm
at
sorry, I
the-
didn't hear.
to the you on the chat, the participant would be April Champion.
April Champion, okay.
Yeah. April, you got it listed as LM, April Champion?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, look for the letters LM. And then the name follows that is April Champion. Do you see it?
Yes, I see it.
Okay, just put down the contact information and so forth.
Okay.
All right, thank you so much. All right. Okay, anything else, Mr. Finley?
Nothing further, Judge. Thank you.
All right, thank you. Mr. Helm, I've already placed you under oath. I need to ask you some questions to make sure that you're entering a plea that's willing, voluntary, and knowing. First of all, have you consumed any kind of medication or drugs?
No.
And have you understood everything that's going on so far?
Yes.
All right, that's a big pat on your shoulder. Okay, and are you satisfied with your attorney, Mr. Finley?
Yes, very much so.
All right. Now, is anyone forcing you to take a plea today?
No.
Are you entering a plea willingly, knowingly, and voluntarily? Mr. Helm, are you entering a plea willingly, voluntarily, and knowingly?
I am.
Mr. Helm, this is what we call a global offer. In other words, they're addressing both your cases with regards to all your charges. If you decide to enter a guilty plea to these charges, you will not be able to challenge it in a court of law. You will not have a trial in front of a judge or a jury. You will not be able to retain counsel or be appointed counsel so that you could challenge the evidence presented against you, challenge the witnesses, examine your accuser, and have the state try to prove the charges against you beyond a reasonable doubt. Are you prepared to give up these rights? Repeat.
Yes, Your Honor.
In case number 22 CR 002-804J, how do you plead to violation of rules regarding pedestrian and roadway, pedestrian soliciting rights of business, disorderly conduct, and obstruction of a law enforcement officer? Repeat.
Guilty.
Your sentence is 12 months to serve 3 days, credit for time served 3 days. You'll be placed on probation to complete a total of 90 hours of voluntary community service. That's 90. You will complete an alcohol and drug evaluation and submit yourself to any treatment if required by the evaluator. You will also contact the Fulton County Social Services in order to get assistance with housing or employment. And that must be done within 30 days of being released. You'll be provided the contact information. Do you understand?
Yeah.
All right. And then once you've got your housing situation squared away, you must contact the Fulton County Clerk's Office and provide us with your correct address. Do you understand?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. You are to stay away from that whole location at Mansell Road and Georgia 400. I don't care whether the highway is going north or south, east or west. That whole area of Mansell Road, Georgia 400. All right. Cars speed at ridiculous levels out there. So unless you want to be a different type of victim out there, do not return to that location. Understood?
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. With regards to your second case, pedestrian soliciting rights or business, your sentence is 12 months to serve 15 days, credit for time served 15 days. that's concurrent with the first case. So your time at the jail is complete. You will be released within 24 hours, and you will report to probation on Tuesday at 132 Mitchell Street. Make sure you report to probation every month. I will waive your probation fees for the entire time, but you must report every month. If you get arrested again, you could end up spending the rest of the time on the sentence in jail. Understood?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you.
All right, next case is 25.
25, okay. That's Mr. Howard's client, 25 at medical, okay.
25.
Yep, got it. Mr. Antoine Joseph Thompson is located at the medical unit, medical screen. Mr. Thompson, this is case 19 CR 008790F. You've been accused of pedestrian in roadway and carrying a weapon without a valid license and carrying a concealed weapon. Your sentence is, your offense date is October 1st, 2019. And you have a right to remain silent. Anything you say in open court about the case, your statements can and will be used against you. You have a right to an attorney, and representing you is Mr. Derek Howard. Mr. Howard, this is going to be an arraignment and further notice for trial. Is that correct?
That's correct, Your Honor.
All right. In that case, do you waive a reading of the accusations?
I do, Judge. I provided him with a copy and we went over it last night.
All right. Mr. Thompson, you've been accused of these misdemeanor offenses. You are legally presumed to be innocent, and upon your entry of a not guilty plea, the case will be scheduled for trial. At the time of the trial, the state would have the complete burden to prove the charges against you beyond a reasonable doubt. If the state succeeds, you could be convicted and face a penalty of up to a year in prison and or up to $1,000 fine for each convicted offense. Given this information, how do you plead? Repeat.
Said
Mr. Thompson, could you repeat your response?
I'm innocent.
All right, so that would be construed as a not guilty plea. The case will be further noticed for trial. Thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
Medical, we are completed with that. All right, we're going back to courtroom 2. Who do we have, please?
Position 20, Jones.
This is is this Christopher Jones?
Yes.
Mr. Jones' case is 22 CR 003478C, in which he's been accused of battery from June 2nd, 2022. Mr. Jones, you've been advised of your right to remain silent. Your attorney is Mr. Derek Howard. This is going to be a negotiated plea, correct, Mr. Howard?
That is correct, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Jones, please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear the information you provide will be the truth to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Mitchell, what is the state's recommendation for, you can put your hand down, for Mr. Jones?
Yes, that will be 12 months to serve, 30 days, credit for time served 15 days, balance probated, no further contact with Allen, spelled Allan, King, a stay away from 3330 Piedmont Road Northeast, Atlanta, Georgia, a 12-week anger management course, 40-hour community service, and no alcohol, drugs, and weapons. Nothing further, Your Honor.
Thank you. Mr. Howard?
Judge, we would ask that you accept that plea as negotiated. We do stipulate to a factual basis, venue, and ID in this case. We would ask that that 12 weeks would be, we would ask that 3 months worth of probation fees be waived so that any monies that he has can go towards paying for those classes. And outside of that, Judge, we'd ask that you accept the plea as negotiated.
Is he employed?
Not currently, Judge.
All right. I will waive probation fees for the entire time. He will report to probation every month, and he'll be required to complete 12 weeks of anger management and 40 hours community service. Is that something, Mr. Howard, that your client will accept?
Yes, Judge, that's what we discussed.
All right. Mr. Jones, do you understand the requirements of probation? You will report every month, but you don't have to pay probation fees.
Yes.
But you
Yep.
need to complete the classes and the community service.
Yes, guilty.
All right. Mr. Jones, have you consumed any medication or alcohol recently?
No.
And have you understood the proceedings so far?
Yes.
And are you satisfied with your attorney?
Yes.
Is anyone forcing you to take a plea today?
No.
If you decide to enter a plea of guilty to the charges, you would have to give up your constitutional rights to have a trial, to be able to confront your accuser, have the assistance of counsel to challenge the state's evidence, present your defenses, examine witnesses, and have the state try to prove the charge against you beyond a reasonable doubt. Are you prepared to give up these rights? How do you plead to one count of battery?
Guilty.
Your sentence is 12 months to serve 30 days, credit for time served 15 days. Your time at the jail is concluded. If you have no other holds, you'll be released and placed on probation. You must report to probation next Tuesday at 132 Mitchell Street. When you're on probation, your probation fees will be waived. You will complete a 12-week anger management program at your expense. You must begin those classes within 60 days of being released. Do you understand?
Yes.
You will also report to probation every month, and you will complete 40 hours of voluntary community service at any nonprofit agency except schools or a religious organization.
Yes.
Is that understood also?
Yes.
Thank you. No contact with Alan King. You have to stay 200 yards away from Alan King. Do not communicate with him in any way, form, or manner. And to stay away from 3330 Piedmont Road. You're not allowed at that location, not on the parking lot, not on the sidewalks, and so forth. If you return to that location, or if you violate the no further contact, you could end up spending the rest of the time in prison. Do you have any questions, Mr. Jones?
No.
That concludes your case. Thank you.
Next, we have Mr. Coleman. He's position 7 on the competency.
This is Demetrius E. Coleman, 17 CR 008-3008, represented by Mr. Derek Howard. Mr. Coleman, you've been advised of your right to remain silent. And Mr. Howard, what's the announcement for this case?
Judge, I guess Ms. Crawford and I in the court would need to just do a breakout. Yeah.
Is this something that I can defer until we reach the competency calendar?
Sure, Judge, right. I wasn't aware he was gonna be.
Yeah. Francois, I'm trying to put off the breakout cases until we've done the SAP and the add-ons. Is that okay?
That's fine, no problem.
Thank
We can
you.
move on to position 4, Mr. Bragg.
Thank you. Mr. Coleman will address you shortly. Thank you. We have Cameron Braggs, represented by Mr. Zach Finling. Mr. Finling, what is the announcement for this case?
Yes, Judge. This is going to be a negotiated plea.
Okay, thank you. Cameron Braggs, case number 22 CR 003488D, is accused of criminal trespass allegedly on June 2nd, 2022. Mr. Braggs, you've been advised of your right to remain silent. Your attorney, Mr. Finling, will be assisting you during this plea hearing. For purposes of the plea, please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear and affirm the testimony you provide will be the truth to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
Thank you. And put your hand down. Ms. Tortorella, what's the plea recommendation?
Yes, Your Honor, for a position number 4, case number 22 CR 003488D, the defendant's being charged with criminal trespass. The state is moving forward with said charge, and the offer is 12 months served 12 days, credit for time served 12 days, balance probated, 40 hours of community service, and to stay away from the incident location, which is the Embassy Suites Hotel at 3285 Peachtree Road in Atlanta. So 22 CR 003326D will run concurrent to 22 CR 003488D. And the offer for the subsequent case is position number 5. It would be,
No, I
sorry.
don't have a second case. So were we addressing a second case for a global offer?
Oh, I'm sorry. Mr. Finley, does he want to do a global offer, or does he would like just to plead to this case?
So I know we talked about doing a global offer for, I believe, the other one that he had open as well.
What's the other case number?
It's so the other case number is 22 CR 003326D.
Okay, that case is not on the calendar, but April, would you be able to do a disposition? Okay, just give us a minute. This case was not on the calendar. 003-326D. Well, yeah.
Yeah, I have to try to locate the file in the office and not, it should be with the case manager. So I have to try to locate the file. But I can go ahead and write up
Disposition?
get a write up.
Okay. Okay. We'll go ahead and address both cases. We don't have the file in the courtroom, but unless there's any objection, our litigation manager will be able to draft the disposition sheet, and providing that Mr. Finling has all the plea documents prepared. Yes?
Yes, Judge. I'm going to send those in after court. Yes, ma'am.
Okay. So, Ms. Tortorella, the state is offering a global offer in the case that's on the calendar, as well as 22 CR 003326D.
Yes,
So
sir.
Mr. Braggs understands that he's pleading guilty to 2 cases. Is that correct?
That's correct, Judge.
All right. So in that case, Ms. Tortorella, please continue.
Yes, so that that case that's not on the calendar, Your Honor, it will run concurrent to 22 CR 003488D. In that case, the defendant is being charged with criminal trespass, and the state's moving forward with said charge. The offer is 12 months served 12 days, credit for time served 12 days, balance probated, 40 hours of community service, and for the defendant to stay away from the incident location, and that's the Cheesecake Factory at 3393 Peachtree Road, Atlanta. And nothing further from the state.
All right. You okay with the disposition sheet so far, April?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Mr. Finley, go ahead.
Yes, Judge. That is our understanding of the offer, of which we do agree. Mr. Braggs has agreed to do the community service for both cases. We would just ask that once Mr. Braggs does complete that community service, that the balance of his probation could be terminated.
All right. Long time ago, when I was driving down Peachtree Road, the Cheesecake Factory and the Embassy Suites are not exactly close, but if I require him to stay 200 yards away from both locations, that will require him to stay away from all the fun places on Peachtree Road. Is that something, Mr. Braggs, that you understand you have to do? Please unmute.
Yeah. Yeah, Mr. Braggs, so it'd probably be best just to stay away from that whole Peachtree Road, Lenox Mall area. Can you do that, sir?
We need to unmute the screen. Francois, you there?
Sorry about that. I was on the phone, Judge.
No problem, no problem. Mr. Braggs, as your attorney was asking you, go ahead, Mr. Finley.
Yes, Mr. Braggs, I just want to make sure you understand that obviously both those locations are on Peachy Road, close together. So I'd recommend you just staying away from that whole Lenox Mall, Peachy Road area. If it's even a question, if you're too close, then you're too close.
What do you mean? I live out there.
Well, you're a part of the Cameron, a part of the,
Peachtree Road, the whole entire road.
well,
In the bucket, in near Embassy Suites and near Cheesecake Factory, which if 200 yards is the length of 2 football fields. So you got a huge area to keep away from.
Okay. That's okay. That's fine.
Okay,
Yeah, I do understand it.
good, good. Okay,
And Your Honor, the state does object to the probation being non-reporting. The defendant has an open felony case, and that's 22 SC 180868.
and
yes, Mr. Finley?
yes, Judge. I mean, I am asking for the probation to be terminated. I understand that he has an open case. I've been in communication with Mr. Bragg's dad. Mr. Bragg's originally from Tennessee. His plan is to go back to Tennessee. He's down here by himself. He is homeless. He's a former student at Middle Tennessee State who came here a few years ago for a court and he's been down here since, and he's homeless. His goal is to get back to Tennessee to be with his family. Mr. Braggs is an orphan. I talked to his dad as his foster dad. So I am
So
asking
we'll
for
do
one.
it this way then, just like the way I did it with the gentleman who had big plans to go back to Florida. He's not allowed to go out of state unless he gets a court order. Probation gets a court order allowing him to go out of state. And we can transfer probation to wherever he decides to move, as long as we've got a definitive address.
Perfect.
And
Understood,
if
Judge.
he's got a fixed address where he'll be staying, whether it's in Tennessee or Florida or wherever he plans to stay, then probation can verify the address. And once that is verified, then we can transfer probation. But he'll be reporting to probation every month.
Understood.
Because
Cameron,
especially now that he's got a open felony case, we want to know exactly where he is at all times.
So I can't leave the state.
Only once you get a court order.
Okay.
so Cameron, do you understand what the judge?
Yeah, I think so.
Okay.
You think so or you know so?
I'm not sure because again, if I have to report every month, then I will have to literally leave the state that I'm.
Listen very carefully. You'll be living in Georgia. You will report to probation in Fulton County, Georgia. If you want to move out of state, you need to get a specific address. You cannot leave the state. You cannot leave. You must get a specific address.
I don't have a house here.
You have a house here?
No, he said that I'm homeless and I've been out here for 4 years, so I don't have a home here. So
Do you have
I
a
don't live-
specific home in wherever?
Yes, in Tennessee, I do have a specific.
Are you allowed to live there? All right, the screen froze. All right. Looks like Mr. Braggs may not be prepared to enter probation. Are you allowed to live in Tennessee at that address?
Yes,
Is that verifiable?
yes,
All right. You'll report to probation in Fulton County until probation verifies your mailing address or your residential address in Tennessee. Once it's verified with whoever owns that property that you are allowed to live there, then we can permit probation to transfer your probation to Tennessee.
okay. If not, Your Honor,
Then you're stuck here.
could I try to get housing with Mr. Finley?
Yeah, definitely. We want you to get help, get housing in Fulton County or in Atlanta or wherever.
Yes.
You just need to report to probation in Fulton County.
Okay,
Yes?
yes.
Okay. Any other questions, Mr.
Just-
Finley?
Yeah, just real quick for Cameron. Mr. Braggs, I've had a social worker meet with you previously. Do you need someone to meet with you again about housing, or do you have that information from before?
Well, and by my understanding, that location with 163, I think, in Tennessee should be okay for me to live at. But if by chance he says that I can't or something, like just out of nowhere, maybe then I need housing here. You know, I can't keep living homeless. So I gotta find somewhere to live.
That's right.
Okay, understood. Thank you, Mr. Braggs.
All right, we are addressing cases 22 CR 003-488D and 22 CR 003-326D. Both cases, Mr. Cameron Braggs has been accused of criminal trespass. The case on the calendar, the offense date is June 2nd, 2022. With regards to both cases, Mr. Braggs, you've been placed under oath, and have you consumed any kind of medication or drugs lately?
No.
And have you understood the proceedings as we have now discussed?
Yes.
And are you satisfied with your attorney?
Yes.
And you entering this plea to both cases knowingly, voluntarily, and willingly?
Yes.
Has anyone forced you or induced you to take this plea today?
No.
In doing so, you will have to give up your constitutional rights to have a trial before a judge or a jury, to be able to have assistance of counsel to challenge the state's evidence, present your own defenses, examine witnesses, and have the state try to prove the charges against you beyond a reasonable doubt. Are you prepared to give up these rights?
Yes.
In case number 22 CR 003-488D, how do you plead?
Guilty.
In case number 22 CR 003-326D, how do you plead?
Guilty.
Your sentence will be concurrent. It will be 12 months to serve 12 days, credit for time served 12 days, balance probated. While you're on probation, you will report to probation on Tuesday. You will provide them with your necessary contact information, and you will start completing 40 hours of voluntary community service. The voluntary community service hours must be completed in Georgia. It can be done with any nonprofit agency, and must be done with a nonprofit that is not a religious organization and that is not a school. Do you understand?
Yes, Your Honor.
You will also stay away from the Embassy Suites Hotel at 3285 Peachtree Road and the Cheesecake Factory Restaurant at 3393 Peachtree Road in Atlanta, Georgia. That is staying away by a distance of 200 yards from each location. So that's going to require you to stay away from a substantial area on Peachtree Road in Buckhead, Georgia. Do you understand?
Yes. What area should I be in then?
Anywhere but those two locations.
All right.
All right. You are also required to report to probation every month. I will waive your probation fees for the entire time. If you fail to report to probation, probation's authorized to revoke your sentence and have you serve out the rest of the time in prison or in jail. Understood?
Understandable.
All right. You cannot leave the state of Georgia unless probation has verified that you have a valid mailing and living residential address in any other state. Only once that address has been verified are you permitted to move to that address out of state, and probation will transfer at that time.
Okay. I do have an address in Tennessee.
It needs to be verified by probation.
Understandable.
Just providing an address is not sufficient.
So
Thank
what
you.
Verifying?
Verifying meaning they will need to contact the homeowner, they need to contact the people living there, and to confirm that they are allowing Cameron Braggs to live there and that it will be his residence.
Okay.
Thank you. That concludes your case. Yes, all of it.
This is Mr. Coleman on the add-on position 2.
Now, this will be a
Yeah.
negotiation fee, Judge.
Okay. This is Willie Edward Coleman, case number 21 CR 001729E. Mr. Coleman has been accused of battery from November 26, 2020. Mr. Coleman, this is a negotiated plea. You've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is Zach Finley. May I place you under oath? All right, friends, do you solemnly swear and affirm the testimony you provide will be the truth to the best of your knowledge?
I do.
Thank you. Ms. Tortorella, what's the recommendation?
Yes, Your Honor, the recommendation is 12 months, served 30 days, credit for time served 30 days, balance probated, 12 weeks of anger management, no contact with the victim. The victim's name is Mario Luis Perez, and that's Luis for the middle name. And then P as in Peter, EREZ as in zebra for the last name. To stay away from 804 Wood Rose Street Southwest in Atlanta. And nothing further.
Mr. Finley?
Yes, Judge, that is our understanding of the offer, of which we do agree. We just ask that the probation fees be waived for Mr. Coleman, and also that once he does complete the condition of the anger management, that is probation, could be non-reporting.
Mr. Coleman, have you consumed any, and you do stipulate to factual basis venue and ID, right?
Yes, Judge.
Okay, sorry. I was writing while you were talking. Okay. Mr. Coleman, have you consumed any kind of medication or alcohol recently?
No, ma'am.
And did you say yes or no?
No, ma'am.
And are you satisfied with the representation of Mr. Finley?
Yes, ma'am.
And you've understood everything so far?
Well, I have health issues right now. I just had a heart attack. I've been in the hospital for about 2-3 weeks here. And for it's doing, being able to move around or transfer, matter of fact, I got to go in for an operation soon.
All right.
I don't know if I'm gonna be able to do any traveling.
Well, I'm going to waive your probation fees. You'll be on probation for about 11 months. And you can take the 12-week anger management anytime during those 11 months. And you can do it via Zoom.
Okay, that's fine. That's fine.
Is that something you'd like to do?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Obviously, you'll have to find out from probation which schools offer this anger management classes through Zoom. Okay?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So given that situation, would you still like to move forward with the plea?
Yes, ma'am.
Is anyone forcing you to take a plea today?
No, ma'am.
And are you doing so willingly, voluntarily, and knowingly?
Yes, I am.
And are you also understanding that you would have to waive your constitutional rights to have a trial, to confront your accuser, have the assistance of counsel, to challenge the state's evidence, present your own defenses, and have the state try to prove the charge against you beyond a reasonable doubt? Are you prepared to give up these rights?
Yes, I am.
How do you plead to the one count of battery?
Guilty.
Your sentence is 12 months to serve 30 days, credit for time served 30 days. If you have no other holds, you should be released, but you must report to probation on Tuesday at 132 Mitchell Street.
Yep.
Once they've got your probation case set up, you will report to probation every month. Your probation fees shall be waived. You will complete the 12-week anger management program, which I permitted you to do so via Zoom, and you may do so either on online classes if available. Understood?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. At all times while you're on probation, you shall have no contact with Mario Luis Perez. Stay 200 yards away from him and do not communicate with him in any way, form, or manner, including social media. And you are to stay away from 804 Woodrow Street in Southwest Atlanta. Do you have any questions about the terms of your sentence?
No, ma'am.
Thank you. Best of luck, sir.
Position 27, Mr. Towns.
Mr. Marquis Towns is accused of 2 counts of criminal trespass. I understand that he's been advised of his rights and he's had a chance to speak to counsel. Mr. Howard, is that correct?
Yes, Judge.
All right. And we're still moving forward with the negotiated plea?
Mr. Town, yes, we spoke on yesterday, Judge. So yes, this is
Okay.
negotiated plea.
All right. So position 27, Mr. Towns, do you solemnly swear and affirm the testimony you provide will be the truth to the best of your knowledge? Mr. Towns? I'm sorry.
On mute, yeah.
Yes, Your Honor.
Okay. So, Ms. Mitchell, go ahead and tell me the recommendation for the 2 counts of criminal trespass.
Your Honor, that'll be time served, 11 days, balance suspended, no further contact with Jatrice, spelled Jatreice, Glass, and a stay away from 100 Spring Court, Fairburn, Georgia. Nothing further, Your Honor.
All right, thank you. Mr. Howard?
Judge, we stipulate to a factual basis, venue, and ID. We ask that you accept the plea as negotiated.
All right, thank you. I'd like to just address one matter that's not related to this case. Do we have a Spanish interpreter on Zoom? All right, that's the answer to your question, Mr. Finley. All right.
Mr. Judge.
All right, so Mr. Towns, have you understood the proceedings so far?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right, so you've not consumed any medication or alcohol recently, correct?
No, Your Honor.
Okay, and are you satisfied with the representation you've received?
Yes, Your Honor.
And are you entering a plea freely, knowingly, and voluntarily?
Yes, Your Honor.
So you understand that you will not have a trial, you will not be able to go back to court, you will not have the ability to confront your accuser, examine witnesses, challenge the state's evidence, and have the state try to prove the charges against you beyond a reasonable doubt. Is that your understanding?
Yes, Your Honor.
How do you plead to 2 counts of criminal trespass in 19 CR 009-010Y?
Guilty.
Your sentence is time served. You'll be given full credit for the time you've been at the jail. The balance is suspended. If you have no other holds, you should be released shortly. You are to stay away from Jatrice Glass. Do not communicate with Mr. or Miss Glass in any way, form, or manner. And you cannot return to the location 100 Spring Court in Fairburn, Georgia. Are you familiar with that location?
Yes, Your Honor.
Do not return there. Understood?
Yes, Your Honor.
If you go back, even though you're not reporting to probation, if you go back, you could be arrested for trespass. Understood?
Yes, Your Honor.
Thank you. Next case, Francois.
Position 22, Mr. Lockett.
Jamal is live.
Thank you, sir. This is case 22 CR 003474B. Mr. Lockett has been accused of fair evasion and criminal trespass at MARTA on June 1st, 2022. I understand, Mr. Lockett, this is going to be a negotiated plea. You've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is Mr. Derek Howard. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear the information you provide will be the truth to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
Thank you, sir. Ms. Mitchell?
Yes, Your Honor, this will be a time served plea. Credit for time served 16 days, balance suspended, and a stay away from MARTA in accordance with any active suspensions. Thank you.
Do you know of any active suspension presently?
Presently, no, Your Honor.
Okay, thank you. Mr. Howard?
Judge, that is our understanding of the plea negotiation. We'd ask that you accept it. We stipulate to the factual basis, venue, and ID in this case.
All right. Mr. Lockett, have you consumed any kind of medication or alcohol recently?
No.
And have you understood the proceedings so far?
Yes.
Are you satisfied with the legal representation you've received?
Yes.
And is anyone forcing you to take a plea today?
No.
Do you know of any active MARTA suspensions against you?
No.
So if you decide to plead guilty, one of the requirements.
Are you talking about it don't suspend it from MARTA right now?
Yeah.
Yes. They said that unsuspended, and they don't want me back on their property.
Do you know when you can return? If you don't know, that's okay.
I feel that I did my time, so I feel that.
No, sir. No, sir. If Marta has a suspension, you cannot return to Marta until that suspension is over. I don't care what you feel like about your time served. I don't need you to understand that if they have a suspension, you cannot return.
Okay.
Do you still want to proceed with the plea?
Oh, yes.
All right. So presently, we don't know when your suspension is. So you're going to have to take some steps to find out. But you also need to understand that if you plead guilty to these charges, you will not be able to return to court. You will not have a trial in front of a judge or a jury. You will not be able to have counsel to challenge the state's charges, to challenge the state's evidence, to present your defenses, to be able to argue your case before a judge or a jury, and have the state try to prove the charges against you beyond a reasonable doubt. Do you understand that you would have to waive all these rights?
Yes.
Yes or no?
Yes.
How do you plead to one count of criminal trespass and one count of fair evasion?
Guilty.
Your sentence is time served. You're given full credit for the 16 days you've been in jail. The balance is suspended. You'll be released within 24 hours if you have no other holds at the Fulton County Jail. Now listen very carefully, because I want to make sure you and I understand each other. You cannot go back to Marta until you confirm with the Marta officers that you have no suspensions. You would need to contact the Marta office. Their headquarters is at Lindbergh Drive. You can go to the office with a police officer to go there and confirm under your name whether you have any suspensions against you. And Marta will inform you of if there are any suspensions and when it will end. Do you have any questions about what I just said?
Yes. So how do I get all my stuff? My valuables from Marta? Because when they locked me up, they all took my bag.
Who took your bag?
Marta police.
Then you need to tell a police officer, you can tell APD or whatever, that you need to go to the Marta office to inquire about your property. I will allow you to go back one time only, but you must have a police officer with you when you go there. You cannot go alone.
All right. Yes.
And once you go there, you can ask about your property and you can find out if there are any active suspensions against you and when do they end. Do you have any questions?
No.
All right, that concludes your case.
Your Honor, I got Mr. Bobby Jolly. He's in quarantine. I have the position number.
That's position 19, Judge.
Thank you. All right, we are looking at a Zoom panel as Jail Court iPhone. And sir, can you hear me all right? Okay, this is position 19, Bobby Jolly. Is that Mr. Jolly?
Yes, ma'am.
Can you hear me, Mr. Jolly? All right, the internet is not very good with the iPhone.
Now, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Are you Mr. Bobby Jolly?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, Mr. Jolly, your case number is 22 CR 0035218, in which you are accused of simple battery domestic violence on March 25th, 2022. Did you hear what I just said?
Yes, ma'am.
You have a right to remain silent. Anything you say during the course of these proceedings, your statements can and will be used against you. You have a right to an attorney, and your counsel is Mr. Derek Howard. Did you hear all that?
Ma'am.
Yes or no? All right, he's indicating with 2 thumbs up, so, okay. So, Mr. Howard, what is the announcement?
Judge, we've agreed to the state's terms, essentially, but we are just asking that it be entered as a NOLO. Mr. Jolly wants to resolve this case and move forward. There's some, dispute about some of the facts, but he acknowledges, the case and wants to go ahead and resolve it. We're just asking that this simple battery family violence be entered as a NOLO. And I didn't have a chance to inquire of the state if they've had an opportunity to speak with Ms. Mira, who's the listed victim in this case, because my concern is they do have 6 children together, ranging in ages from 10 to 5 months. And obviously, they would need to be able to communicate for purposes of raising their children. They do live in the same, at the time of this arrest, were living together. And I don't know if the state has had an opportunity to reach out to her, because I didn't have a good number for her to see if she, would be okay with no further violent contact. Does the state have any information related to that?
Ms. Mitchell, has there been any feedback from Ms. Siobhan Mira?
One moment, Your Honor. As far as no further violent contact, she didn't state anything as far as their contact. She did mention that the situation was a while ago and that she doesn't want to see anything happen and that she didn't want to be present. And yeah, there were no discussions as far as whether she wants contact or not.
I can allow for third-party transfer of the children at this juncture.
Okay. All right. Thank you, Judge.
All
We'll
right.
work with that.
So this is a negotiated plea, correct?
Yes, Judge.
With the entry of NOLO.
Right. That part hasn't been negotiated with the state, but
I see. And Ms. Mitchell?
Yes, Your Honor, the state will object to the NOLO. The defendant has 17 cycles and he did use a NOLO on June 2nd of this year on a theft by shoplifting case out of Henry County. He also used NOLO on an obstruction out of Clayton County. And in the state of Georgia, you can only use NOLO once every 5 years. So I
That's
believe,
really a traffic rule, but I understand.
Oh,
Okay, anything else?
no, nothing further. Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Finling, we have a Spanish interpreter on Zoom.
And Judge, as it relates to that is Mr. Fernandez I'm seeing, and I'm not sure how he ended up on the regular calendar. That's one of our competency cases. So he should not be addressed today. He's not on the competency calendar for today. So we would ask that that be reset. I believe we reset it to a date certain last time. I'm not sure which date. It may have been today, but for the competency calendar.
For the competency calendar, it was Mr. Fernandez, you said?
Well, he's on the regular SAP calendar for some reason and not on the competency calendar.
Okay, Mr. Fernandez is on the regular calendar and that's position number 9. Is that correct?
Right.
Okay, when are you going to reset it to?
And actually, Judge, once we're done, I can speak with him with the interpreter, but we can reset it for at least 2 weeks. We're working on something for him.
I don't know where he is, so I don't know whether he's in the jail or what. Francois,
He's
do you
on medical.
have Miguel Fernandez in the courtroom?
He's on medical. Judge.
Oh, he's in medical. Okay.
Yeah, medical.
All right, we will have a breakout with the Spanish interpreter, Fernandez. Medical, please hold with Mr. Fernandez, please. Thank you. All right. Okay, moving back to Bobby Jolly. Mr. Howard, the state is opposing a NOLO plea. What's your response?
Well, Judge, we understand that they would object. However, I didn't know if he had entered a nolo previously, but the court is aware, right, that you're not limited to the 5 years. We would just ask in this case that the court consider a nolo, since he did have some, I guess, issue with some of the facts, but overall he acknowledges that he needs to resolve this and that he's comfortable with a no contest plea in this case.
Understood. Mr. Bobby Jolly, this incident happened on March 25th, 2022. That's not very long ago. And given the number of cycles you've got, given the number of entries of nolo contendere that you've entered recently, I will not accept a no contest plea. So it would have to be a guilty plea or it would have to be a trial. What would you like to do?
Bring Allie coming out.
Oh, I'm sorry, Francois. I'm sorry. Thank you.
I'm sorry, Judge. I thought I was muted.
All right.
I think Mr. Jolly is frozen, Judge.
Mr. Bobby Jolly, as I was saying, you can either consider a guilty plea or a trial. What would you like to do?
His screen is frozen, Judge. The jail,
Yeah.
of course, iPhone. So.
I'm
Hello?
sorry, repeat that again. Mr. Bobby Jolly, the internet at your location is not clear, so I need to.
Guilty.
Got that. Okay.
Okay.
All right, Mr. Howard, understood. I heard you. Thank you. So Mr. Mr. Howard. Thank you, sir.
Okay. She heard you.
Mr. Howard, do you stipulate to the factual basis, venue and ID?
We do, Judge.
All right. Hopefully the internet will work for this part. Mr. Jolly, have you consumed any medication or alcohol? Mr. Jolly, have you consumed any medication or alcohol? Deputy, your iPhone is frozen. Okay. All right, let's try it again. Can you hear me, Deputy?
You see me, Your Honor?
I can see you. I just want to be sure he can hear my question. So let's proceed, please. Thank you. Mr. Jolly, have you consumed any medication or alcohol recently? You need to say yes or no. Have you consumed any medication or alcohol? You need to say yes or no.
I'm sure he's saying it, Judge. The phone is not, that's audio.
I know.
That's why he's doing letting you know that the audio is not picking up.
I don't know whether he means he can't hear me or whether he understands the question.
No.
Are you satisfied with your attorney? Are you satisfied with your attorney?
No.
This is like worse than pulling teeth. Okay. He's got the hands up, thumbs up. So he's satisfied with the counsel. Mr. Howard, do you have any objection with me of conducting this plea hearing in this manner?
No, Judge, we've discussed it. We were aware that it could be a guilty plea, so we're aware of everything.
And with him giving me signals, thumbs up or thumbs down?
Yes, that's fine, Judge.
Okay. Is anyone forcing you to take a plea today? Mr. Jolly? Okay, he's shaking his head. Is anyone forcing you to take a plea?
No.
And has Mr. Howard
No.
Has Mr. Howard explained all the rights that you will be waiving if you take a plea today?
No.
Has Mr. Howard gone over all the waiver of rights with you?
Yes, yes,
How do you plead to one
Yes.
count? How do
yes,
you plead to simple battery, domestic violence?
yes. Yes. Yes,
How do you plead to simple battery, domestic violence?
yes.
Deputy, we need to make sure the internet is frozen. How do you plead to simple battery,
Yes.
domestic violence? How do you plead?
Yes. Yes.
Mr. Jolly, how do you plead to simple battery, domestic violence?
You.
Your sentence is 12 months to serve 28 days, credit for time served 14 days. The remainder of the time will be on probation.
Guilty.
Thank you. You will report to probation.
Guilty.
Got it. You will report to probation on Tuesday. You are to have no contact with Siobhan Mera. You have to stay 200 yards away from her and do not communicate with her in any way, form, or manner. You may you're also to stay away from 3804 Martin Luther King Jr. Drive in Southwest Atlanta. While on probation, you will complete a 6-month domestic violence program. While on probation, you will complete a 6-month domestic violence program, and that must be started within 30 days of being released. I will waive all your probation fees. You will also complete 40 hours of voluntary community service and not consume any alcohol, drugs, and not possess any weapons or firearms.
Judge, I think you said you would allow third-party transfer of the children.
Yes, and I will allow third-party transfer of the children he shares with Ms. Mera. Mr. Howard, you probably need to reach out to the jail and go over those terms again with him.
Yes,
just
that's
to
what
make
I'll do,
sure.
Judge.
All right.
I'll
Thank
do
you. That concludes this case. Francois, do we have anyone else?
No, I would just wanted to let you know that we're completed here in courtroom 2, Judge.
All right, thank you, Francois, appreciate it, thank you. All right, we have on our DV bench warrant case, we have position number 1, Brittany Bird. Brittany Bird. Oh, you're here? Okay. Ms. Mudd, come all the way around and have a seat in that gallery right there, not through those doors, walk all the way around.
And Judge Law, I just want to make sure that, are we going to the South Annex at some point? They even-
South, okay, let me just take care of this one first and I will go
Okay.
to South Annex, okay.
No worries.
This Brittany Raquel Bird is accused of simple battery, case number 21 CR 007446E from a December 9, 2021 incident. This is a motion to set aside the bench warrant submitted by Ms. Bird. The bench warrant was issued on May 20, excuse me, on June 10th, 2022. Yeah, we've lost the.
Yeah, I gotta get y'all back on video because obviously it kicked out. So give me a second, if I can get them back on so they can see her in the courtroom.
All right.
Position number 2 is.
But we'll address your case as soon as this screen comes back on, okay? Because that way everyone can then see you. South Annex, are you online? Are you there? South Annex, yes, good morning. Deputy Milton, good morning. How many cases do you have? You're on mute.
Good morning. I will get it together this morning, Your Honor. I promise.
How many cases do you have?
I have a total of 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6.
Okay.
Position 1, Ms. Angwin. Yes. Have a seat.
All right, as soon as that screen comes on, if I'm done with these cases, then I'll start you, okay? All right, Ms. Angwin, as well as the folks who are at the South Annex. This is Judge Lal, and I'm addressing the criminal cases that are pending against you. I'm going to be addressing each case on a one-on-one basis. So all of you, please remember, you have a right to remain silent. Anything you say in open court, your statements can and will be used against you. You have a right to an attorney. If you cannot afford one, we will have a public defense attorney or conflict defense attorney representing you. Ms. Christina Angwin is accused of criminal trespass and willful obstruction of an officer. She has been advised of her right to remain silent, and her attorney is Mr. Zach Finling. This is going to be a non-negotiated plea with regards to the $300 fine. Well, Ms. Tortorella, you know where I'm going to go with this. Any objection to the amendment for 30 hours of community service?
I'll defer to you, Your Honor.
Mr. Finling, I'm going to require 30 hours of community service. I understand that she's already completing 40 hours as part of the original plea recommendation. So she would now have to complete 70 hours of voluntary community service instead of paying a $300 fine. Is that something that your client would like to do?
Understood. Okay, so Ms. Angwin, so the judge is converting that $300 fine to additional community service. So that will now be 70 hours community service. Does that work with you?
Yes, that's fine.
All right. Ms. Angwin, please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear and affirm the testimony you provide will be the truth to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
Go ahead, Ms. Tortorella. What's the recommendation for the two charges?
Yes, Your Honor, for the criminal trespass, it's 12 months, serve 11 days, credit for time served 11 days, balance probated. To stay away from the incident location, the Economy Hotel at 9995 Old Dogwood Road in Roswell, and 40 hours of community service. For the obstruction charge, it's 12 months, serve 11 days, credit for time served 11 days, balance probated. Your Honor has imposed a 30-hour community service rather than $300 fine, and the obstruction would run concurrent to the criminal trespass. Your Honor, on June 3rd, 2022, Officer York of the Roswell Police Department responded to a trespassing call at the Economy Hotel, 9995 Old Dogwood Road in Roswell. Upon arrival, the officer made contact with the reporting party staff member, Miss Monique Jones, who presented a criminal trespass warning to the officer that was signed by the defendant, Christina Angwin. Ms. Jones advised the officer that the defendant is on the property and inside in room 142 with an acquaintance. Ms. Jones advised she wanted to pursue charges against the defendant because this is an ongoing issue. Ms. Jones said she has called 911 in the past, but the defendant leaves the scene before police arrive. Ms. Jones announced herself as a hotel staff member and made entry into room 142 of the hotel. Ms. Jones advised the officer she observed the defendant was in the bathroom. Ms. Jones then calls the defendant to come to the front door. The officer observed the defendant come to the front door and attempted to place her in custody. The defendant resisted arrest by refusing to put her hands behind her back, not listening to the officer's lawful commands to stop resisting and pulling away from the officer. The officer was able to gain control and arrested the defendant. However, the defendant refused to walk, pulled away again, and dropped her body weight to the floor. The officer and his partner carried the defendant to the patrol car by carrying her under each arm. Once inside the patrol car, the defendant began to thrash around. And all these events did occur in Fulton County, Georgia. Your Honor, she has relevant convictions. One recent one is a July 19th, 2021 criminal trespass out of Fulton County State Court. Nothing further.
Thank you. Mr. Finley?
Yes, Judge, that is our understanding of the offer, of which we do agree. We would just ask first that the probation fees could be waived, as finances are a big issue in Ms. Angwin's life. And additionally, once she does complete those community service hours, that her probation could either be terminated or become non-reporting, Judge.
No
Under
objection.
circumstances, yeah, go ahead, Mr. Torello.
No objection from the state.
All right, non-reporting. Okay, so Ms. Christina Angwin, have you consumed any medication or alcohol recently?
No,
And have you understood the proceedings so far?
except for the probation part. Can you explain that? Like, after I finish my community service, will I be on non-report or will it be terminated?
It will be non-reporting.
And how long will I have to not do non-report?
Well, your term for probation is going to be 11 months and 19 days or 20 days, depending on the calculation. And then if you finish the 70 hours community service, they will then deduct that time. And then you'll be on probation for the rest of the remaining year.
Okay.
Okay. And are you satisfied with the representation of your attorney?
Yes.
And if you decide to enter a plea of guilty to criminal trespass and willful obstruction, you would have to you have to waive your constitutional rights to challenge these charges in a court of law. You will not be able to go back to have a trial. You will not have the assistance of counsel to challenge the state's case, present your defenses, confront your accuser, examine witnesses, and have the state try to prove the charges against you beyond a reasonable doubt. Are you prepared to give up these rights?
Yeah.
How do you plead to one count of criminal trespass at the Economy Hotel and Dogwood Drive and willful obstruction of an officer?
Yes.
Sorry, repeat.
I'm sorry, can you repeat that? I didn't get what you're saying.
How do you plead to the 2 misdemeanor charges brought against you?
Oh, guilty.
Your sentence is 12 months to serve 11 days, credit for time served 11 days. The remainder of the time for the 1 year, you'll be placed on probation. While on probation, you will complete 70 hours of voluntary community service, and you will stay away from the Economy Hotel at 9995 Old Dogwood Road in Roswell, Georgia. You have to stay 200 yards away, which includes the parking lot, the sidewalks, and the buildings itself. This is a concurrent sentence to the obstruction charge. You will report to probation on Tuesday. You will update probation with your current mailing and residential address and all necessary contact information. You will report to probation every month while your community service hours are to be completed. You can do the voluntary community service at any nonprofit agency except a school or a religious organization. Any other nonprofit but a school or a religious organization. Once you have satisfied probation, the completion of the hours are done, your probation will be non-reporting. I will waive probation fees for the months of June, July, and August. Thank you.
Next, we have position number 7, Ms. Carmichael.
This will
Ms.
be
Ms. Cilietti Carmichael is 22 CR 003462J. Ms. Carmichael, you've been advised of your right to remain silent. Your attorney is Mr. Zach Finley. This is going to be a negotiated plea. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear and affirm the testimony you provide will be the truth to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, ma'am.
Repeat.
Yes.
Thank you. All right, Ms. Tortorella, what's the recommendation?
Yes, Your Honor. For the criminal trespass charge, it's 12 months, served 13 days, credit for time served 13 days, balance probated, 60 hours of community service, and to stay away from 120 Piedmont Avenue in Atlanta. Nothing further.
Okay, Mr. Finley?
Yes, Judge. That is our understanding of the offer, of which we do agree. We would just ask the probation fees be waived for a period of time, and that period of time, and additionally that once she does complete the condition of community service, that it become a non-reporting or balance suspended.
All right, thank you. Ms. Carmichael, have you consumed any medication or alcohol recently?
No.
And
but
have
I
you
had
that's good. Have you understood the
aspirin.
proceeding? Have you?
One aspirin.
Miss-
Have you-
Aspirin, headache medicine.
Miss Carmichael,
Yes.
if you could please, the judge is going to ask you questions. If you could
Oh,
please
yes, sir. Yes.
just answer yes or no, please, ma'am.
Okay,
Thank you.
yes.
Have you understood the proceedings so far?
Yes, ma'am.
And are you satisfied with your representation of your attorney?
Yes, ma'am.
If you decide to plead guilty to charge of criminal trespass, you would have to give up your constitutional rights to go back to court, to have a trial in front of a judge or a jury, to confront your accuser, examine witnesses, present your defenses, challenge the state's evidence, and have the state try to prove the charge against you beyond a reasonable doubt. Are you prepared to give up these rights?
Yes, ma'am.
How do you plead to one count of criminal trespass?
Guilty.
Your sentence is 12 months to serve 13 days, credit for time served 13 days. You'll be placed on probation for the remainder of the time. You will report to probation on Tuesday, where you will update the probation officer with all your contact information. You will complete 60 hours of voluntary community service with any nonprofit agency except a school or a religious organization. You will also not return to 120 Piedmont Avenue in Atlanta, Georgia. You have to stay 200 yards away from that location. If you return, you will be arrested for trespass. Your probation fees will be waived for the months of June, July, and August. And then if you complete your community service, your probation will be non-reporting. Understood?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Next, we have position 10, Ms. Figueroa.
Ms. Reva Shane Figueroa. Case number 22 CR 003-504E is accused of hit and run and operating a vehicle with no automobile insurance on May 28th, 2022. This is going to be a non-negotiated plea hearing in which the state's first going to give their recommendation, and then the defense is going to provide an alternative recommendation. I will consider the arguments presented and Ms. Figueroa's criminal record history and let you know which recommendation I will accept before we move on. Ms. Figueroa, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is Zach Finley. Ms. Tortorella?
Yes, Your Honor, and just to make the court aware, this defendant does have a hold in Clayton County with no bond.
I see that she has a hold for a separate case, or has she already pled in Clayton County?
She has an active hold, Your Honor.
Okay.
On the jail screen. So for the hit and run, it's 12 months served, 12 days, a credit for time served, 12 days, balance probated, a $300 fine, which per statute is not allowed to be suspended or probated, a defensive driving course, and for the no insurance, 12 months, served 12 days, credit for time served 12 days, balance probated, a $400 fine suspended, and that would run concurrent to count one. And nothing further. Oh, I'm sorry, this is non-negotiated. So, Your Honor, on May 28th, 2022, Officer Ray was dispatched to a hit and run located at Metropolitan Parkway and Lakewood Avenue in Atlanta. Upon arrival, the officer spoke with the victim, Tavarius Knight. Tavarius, for the record, is T as in Tom, A, V as in Victor, A, R-R-I-U-S. Knight is spelled K-N-I-G-H-T. The victim said he was eastbound on Lakewood Avenue and at the red light at the intersection of Metropolitan Parkway and Lakewood Avenue. While stopped at the light, Mr. Knight said a vehicle attempted to enter his lane and struck Mr. Knight's vehicle on the right side of the front bumper. A witness said she saw the vehicle strike Mr. Knight's vehicle and left the scene and observed the vehicle at issue at the Exxon gas station at 2461 Metropolitan Parkway in Atlanta. Officers responded to the location and located the vehicle. Upon approaching the vehicle, the driver, later identified as defendant Riva Figueroa, began yelling and started crying and said, "You pulled a gun on me." Officer asked for the defendant's license, and upon checking record, it showed that she had a warrant out of Clayton County. Officer also observed she had no insurance and cited her for the charge. A defendant was arrested, and all these events did occur in Fulton County, Georgia. Your Honor, though she has one cycle in her criminal history, she's pled NOLO to no insurance. This is according to her driver's history on October 1st, 2021 in Clayton County State Court. She's also pled NOLO to following too closely in Clayton County State Court on October 1st, 2021. Failure to obey signs, Riverdale Municipal Court. She was convicted of that on March 10th, 2020, and on March 2nd, 2018, failure to obey signs at DeKalb County Traffic Court Division. Nothing further from the state.
Mr. Finley?
Yes, Judge. Ms. Figueroa has agreed to do the defensive driving course if she thinks that that is appropriate and helpful. We are just addressing the $300 fine for the hit and run and hoping that that can be converted into community service if possible. And that was the only thing we wanted to address with Ms. Figueroa's case, and just that the probation fees could be waived for her, and that once she completes those conditions, if she can be non-reporting.
All right. I'm going to accept the state's recommendation. She will be on mandatory probation for the entire time. I will waive probation fees for the months of June, July, and August. And then beginning September 1st, she will start paying probation fees. No driving unless she has a valid driver's license, adequate automobile insurance, and proper registration for any vehicle that she operates. Her probation will commence as soon as any holds that she has in any jurisdiction has been resolved. I understand, I don't know what the hold in Clayton County is about. So if she takes this plea, then Clayton County would have to come and pick her up. Right? Ms. Figueroa, do you want to proceed with this plea? You will be placed on probation. You will need to pay the $300 fine. You will need to do the defensive driving class. I will waive the probation fees for months of June, July, and August. But then beginning September 1st, you will not need to start paying probation fees and report every month until your probation is completed.
Yes.
Ms. Figueroa, you need to let me know whether you want to accept this plea or not.
I accept it.
All right. Mr. Finley, do you concur?
I do, Judge.
All right. And do you stipulate to the venue and ID?
I do.
Ms. Figueroa, do you raise your right hand? Do you solemnly swear and affirm the information you provide will be the truth to the best of your knowledge?
Yes.
All right. You may place your hand down. Have you consumed any kind of medication or drugs?
No.
And are you satisfied with your representation from Mr. Finley?
Yes.
Have you understood everything so far? Were there any questions? Okay. And is anyone forcing you to take a plea today?
No.
If you decide to accept this plea, you would have to give up your constitutional rights to go back to court, to have a trial before a judge or a jury, to have the assistance of counsel to challenge the state's evidence, present your own defenses, and have the state try to prove the charge against you beyond a reasonable doubt. Are you prepared to give up these rights? Yes. How do you plead to one count of hit and run?
Guilty.
Repeat.
Guilty.
How do you plead to one count of no insurance in Fulton County?
Guilty.
Your sentence will be concurrent. It will be 12 months to serve 12 days, credit for time served 12 days. Your probation will commence once all outstanding holds have been resolved. Once you're released from all holds, you will report to the Fulton County Probation Office at 132 Mitchell Street, where you will provide them with all your contact information, and you will continue to report to probation every month. Your probation fees will be waived for June, July, will be waived for 3 months once you start reporting. Do you understand?
Yes.
After 3 months, you will continue to report to probation and start paying probation fees. You'll be required to attend and complete one defensive driving class at your expense, and this must be done within 30 days of being released from Fulton County Jail or released from any holds.
Okay.
Thank you.
Next, we have position 13, Ms. Harris.
Ms. Akeem Harris. I'm sorry. Is this Akeem Harris or Keola Harris?
Keola Harris.
That's what I thought. Miss Keola Harris, this case is 17 CR 022202Y. Sounds like a lottery ticket number to me, but you've been accused of battery, substantial physical harm from March 30th, 2017. This is going to be a negotiated plea. Please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear and affirm the information you provide will be the truth to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. You have been advised to remain silent about the facts of the case, and your attorney is Mr. Zach Finling. Ms. Tortorella, what's the recommendation for Ms. Harris?
Yes, for the battery, so she's been charged with battery, substantial physical harm. And we also added a simple battery charge, Your Honor. But however, I will be null crossing that one. So for the battery, 12 months served, 29 days, credit for time served, 29 days, balance probated, 12-week anger management classes, no contact with the victim. And her name is Katozia Smith, and it's spelled K as in kite, A-T-O-Z as in zebra, J-A, and the last name is Smith. To stay away from the Hamilton East Holmes MARTA station at 70 Hamilton East Holmes Drive Northwest in Atlanta. Your Honor, and just to advise you that the victim here in this case, she was involved in a subsequent case with the same defendant, which she was convicted of on August 8th, 2019. So I just wanted to make the court know she must stay away from the victim in this case, and nothing further.
Mr. Finley?
Yes, Judge. That is our understanding of the offer, of which we do agree, and Ms. Harris understands that there needs to be no further contact and stay away. Additionally, she's agreed to do the anger management. We would just ask that probation fees could be waived, and that she could be non-reporting once she does complete those conditions.
I'm going to require her to be reporting every month, but I will waive probation fees. Do you want to still proceed?
Do you want to still proceed, Ms. Harris? That sound good?
Yes.
All right. Yes, ma'am.
All right, Ms. Harris, you've already been sworn. You do stipulate to venue and ID as well, right, Mr. Finley? Okay.
Yes, Judge.
Ms. Harris, have you consumed any medication or drugs recently? And are you satisfied with the representation of your attorney?
Yes.
Repeat?
Yes.
And have you understood everything so far?
Yes.
If you decide to take this plea, you would have to give up your constitutional rights to have a trial in front of a judge or a jury. You will not be able to have the assistance of counsel to go back to court, to confront your accuser, examine witnesses, challenge the state's evidence, present any defenses you may have, and have the state try to prove the charges against you beyond a reasonable doubt. Are you prepared to give up these rights? How do you plead to one count of battery causing substantial physical harm? Your sentence is 12 months to serve 60 days, credit for time served, 26 days. So that means, oh,
Your Honor, I'm sorry, we renegotiated, so it's 29, it's credit for time served. So she'll be doing 12 months served, 29 days, credit for time served, 29 days. So it's.
sorry about that, I forgot to write that.
Yeah, I apologize.
12 months to serve 29 days, credit for time served 29 days. You will report, if you have no other holds, once you are released, you will report to probation on Tuesday at 132 Mitchell Street. Once there, you will create a case and give probation officer all your necessary contact information. You will continue to report to probation once a month. You need to complete a 12-week anger management program. You must begin that program within 60 days of being released. You are to have no contact with Katoja Smith and to stay away from the Hamilton Homes, Homes Martyr Station. Your probation fees shall all be waived and you will continue to report to probation every month. Thank you.
Next, we have position 17, Ms. Johnson. Latanya Johnson.
I have Latanya Johnson, case number 20 CR 0013958, accused of driving under the influence of alcohol per se, reckless driving, hit and run, following too closely, endangering a child by driving under the influence of alcohol, and DUI less safe. These charges all stem from an April 11, 2018 incident. Ms. Johnson, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is Mr. Derek Howard. This is, we were holding on this case, Mr. Howard. What's the announcement?
Judge, this is a negotiated plea.
All right, thank you. Ms. Johnson, if you please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear and affirm the information you provide will be the truth to the best of your knowledge? Yes. Thank you. Ms. Mitchell, are we addressing all the charges? Any being merged or null crossed?
Yes, Your Honor. So we'll null crossing, reckless driving, endangering child, and DUI less safe. The defendant will plead guilty to DUI per se, hit and run, following too closely. Those charges will run concurrent. As far as the time goes, it'll be the same. So that'll be 12 months to serve, 18 days, credit for time served, 9 days, balance probated. And then for the DUI per se, we'll have the following conditions of a $300 fine, a risk reduction course, ADET, VIP, a parenting class, 100-hour community service, and no alcohol, drugs, and weapons. And I'll get the no cross paperwork.
Oh, thank you. Yeah, please send that to April Champion. Thank you. Mr. Howard?
Yes, Judge, we do stipulate the venue ID and a factual basis.
Just 1 second. Mr. Jamal Painter, I know you've been very patient, but you need to park your vehicle and we are going to remove you from the Zoom until you parked, and then you can reconnect back in Zoom.
I need you to be quiet.
Ms. Lois, please remove Jamal Painter from the Zoom. Thank you. All right. Going back to Ms. Latanya Johnson. Mr. Howard, I'm sorry.
Yes, Judge, we stipulate to venue ID and a factual basis for the plea. We ask that you would accept the plea as negotiated. The terms that Ms. Mitchell laid out are what we discussed and what we agreed to. So we ask you to accept it as negotiated.
All right, thank you. Ms. Johnson, have you consumed any medication or alcohol recently? No. And have you understood the proceedings so far? Yes. Are you satisfied with the representation you received? Yes. And is anyone forcing you to take a plea on this particular case? Repeat?
No.
By taking a plea, you will not have the opportunity to go back to court to have a trial in front of a judge or jury. You will need to waive your constitutional rights to have the assistance of counsel, to be able to go into court, confront your accuser, examine witnesses, challenge the state's evidence, present your defenses, and have the state try to prove the charges against you beyond a reasonable doubt. Are you prepared to give up these rights?
Yes.
How do you plead to one count of DUI per se, one count of reckless driving, and one count of hit and run?
Was actually the following two closer, Judge, and the hit and run, the reckless driving is being no process.
Oh, I thought it was the other way around. Repeat that again, Ms. Mitchell. She's pleading to DUI, following too closely, and which one?
Hit and run.
Hit and run.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Let me rephrase that then. Ms. Johnson, how do you plead to DUI per se, following too closely, and hit and run?
Yes.
Your sentence is 12 months to serve 18 days, credit for time served 9 days. Your time served at the jail is concluded and you'll be released within 24 hours to be placed on probation. You must report to your probation officer at 132 Mitchell Street on Tuesday next week. While on probation, you will pay a $300 fine, complete a risk reduction course, submit yourself to an alcohol and drug evaluation, and submit yourself to any treatment that's required. You will also attend and complete one victim impact panel, one qualified parenting class, complete 100 hours of voluntary community service at any nonprofit agency that's not a school and not a religious organization. You're also not to consume any alcohol, no drugs, and no weapons while you're on probation. You are not to operate any motor vehicle unless you have a valid driver's license, adequate automobile insurance, and proper registration. Your probation fees will be waived for the months of June, July, August, and September. Beginning October 1st, you will continue to report to probation and start paying probation fees. That concludes this case.
Thank you, Judge.
Next we have position 26, Ms. Tillman.
We have Demetria Marcia Tillman, 22 CR 003496F. Ms. Tillman has been accused of battery and theft by taking, allegedly on June 1st, 2022. Ms. Tillman, you've been advised of your right to remain silent, and your attorney is going to be Mr. Derek Howard. This is going to be a negotiated plea, so please raise your right hand. Do you solemnly swear and affirm the testimony you provide will be the truth to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Ms. Marshall, what's the recommendation?
Mitchell, Your Honor.
Ms. Mitchell, excuse me.
It's okay. I'm currently experiencing technical difficulties. My screen is frozen. Luckily, I'm still on Zoom. I'm not able to see it right now.
I can give you.
I can see and hear you clearly. Did you want to continue or do you want to enter Zoom? Leave and enter.
So my Zoom is working, but my Word documents and everything, my emails, it's all frozen.
So I'm not. So what I have on the plea offer that was submitted by the state to the court was that if Ms. Tillman pleads guilty to battery and theft by taking, it's going to be a concurrent sentence for 12 months to serve 30 days, credit for time served 15 days, balance probated, no contact with Julian Duran, stay away from the Chase Bank at 10900 Haynesbridge Road in Alpharetta, Georgia. There's a restitution of $247, a 12-week anger management program, 40 hours of voluntary community service, and not to consume any alcohol, illegal drugs, and not possess any weapons or firearms while on probation.
That's correct, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Howard?
Yes, Judge, that is the plea as we negotiated it. We do stipulate to a venue ID and a factual basis for the plea. And Judge, we would ask that 6 months of probation fees be waived. She'll need to pay $247 in restitution as well as pay for 12 anger management sessions. So we'd ask for that consideration. But otherwise, we ask that you accept the plea as negotiated and that probation, if she's able to get it done in advance of 12 months, that it either go non-reporting or terminate.
I will waive probation fees up to and including the end of November 2022, then beginning December 1st, 2022, she will continue to report to probation and start paying probation fees. Would you like to proceed?
Yes, that's okay, right, Ms. Tillman? Okay, all right. Mhm.
All right. Ms. Tillman, first of all, you've already been sworn. Have you consumed any medication or alcohol recently?
No, ma'am.
And have you understood the proceedings so far?
Yes, ma'am.
If you decide to enter this guilty plea, you would have to do so and waive your constitutional rights to go back to court, to have a trial before a judge or a jury, to be able to confront your accuser, examine witnesses, challenge the state's evidence and present your defenses, and have the state carry its burden of proof to prove the charges against you beyond a reasonable doubt. Are you prepared to waive these rights?
Yes, ma'am.
And are you satisfied with the representation of your attorney?
Yes, ma'am.
How do you plead to 1 count of battery and 1 count of theft by taking?
Guilty.
Your sentence is going to be concurrent for both charges. It's 12 months to serve 30 days, credit for time served 15 days. If you have no other holds, you'll be released within 24 hours, and you must report to your probation office next Tuesday at 132 Mitchell Street, where you will create a probation case and provide them with all your current contact information.
Yes,
While
ma'am.
on probation, you are to stay 200 yards away from Julian Duran and not communicate with him in any way, form, or manner. No contact with Julian Duran. You're to stay 200 yards away from Chase Bank at 10900 Haynesbridge Road in Alpharetta, Georgia. You will pay back a restitution of $247. Payments must be made directly to your probation officer, and they will remit the funds to the victim. You are also to enroll and complete a 12-week anger management program. This must be done within 60 days of being released. While on probation, you also need to complete 40 hours of voluntary community service at any nonprofit agency, with the exception of a school or a religious organization. While on probation, you're not to consume any illegal drugs, no alcohol consumption, and you're not to possess any weapons or firearms. Any questions, Ms. Tillman?
No, ma'am, that'll be all.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you, Your Honor.
All right, that concludes South Annex.
Next.
Moving on to medical, we have Sydney Johnson.
Yes, 18.
Sydney Johnson is case 22 CR 003522F, accused of willful obstruction of an officer, theft by shoplifting, and criminal trespass at a Walgreens, allegedly on June 3rd, 2022. Is this going to be a negotiated plea, Mr. Johnson? You have a right to remain silent. Anything you say about the facts of your case, your statements can and will be used against you. You have a right to an attorney, and representing you is going to be Mr. Derek Howard. Is that correct?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Mr. Howard, is this going to be a negotiated plea?
Yes, Judge.
All right.
This is a negotiated plea.
Mr. Howard, Mr. Johnson, please raise your right hand. Other right hand. Do you solemnly swear and affirm the testimony you provide will be the truth to the best of your knowledge?
Yes, ma'am.
Thank you. Ms. Mitchell, are we still good, or would you like me to read the offer submitted to the court?
Oh, we're good, Your Honor.
All right, what's the recommendation for Mr. Sidney Johnson?
It will be 12 months to serve, 28 days, credit for time served, 14 days, balance probated, a stay away from the Walgreens. I'm missing that address, so I'll get that for you shortly. A theft prevention course, 60 hours community service, and no alcohol, drugs, and weapons. All counts are to run concurrent.
Concurrent,
Thank
okay. Mr. Howard?
Yes, Judge, that is our understanding of the plea negotiation. We stipulate to a factual basis, venue, and ID. We ask that you accept the plea as negotiated. We would ask that the theft prevention course, I'm not sure what that's going to cost. So we'd ask for just maybe 3 months of probation fees to be waived, and that probation be allowed to terminate upon completion of all requirements and conditions.
I will waive probation fees, but he'll need to report every month.
Okay, all right.
Mr. Johnson, I will waive your probation fees, but I'm not going to terminate or put it on non-reporting. You have to report every month. Is that something you'd like to accept?
No, I just, I was wrong. I just want to give it up and get it over and get it out. That's all.
You can get out, but you'll report to probation every
I
month.
will report for probation. I just said I won't plead guilty to get over it.
All right. And the address I have is 25 Peachtree Street in Atlanta, Georgia. Do you concur, Ms. Mitchell?
Yes, Your Honor.
All right. Mr. Johnson, have you consumed any medication or alcohol recently?
No, ma'am.
And have you understood the proceedings so far?
Yes, ma'am, I have.
Are you satisfied with the services you received from Mr. Howard?
Yes, ma'am.
And is anyone forcing you to take a plea today?
No, ma'am.
If you decide to plead guilty to the charge of obstruction of an officer, theft by shoplifting, and criminal trespass, you will not be able to go back to court to have a trial. There will be no trial. You will not have an attorney representing you. You will not also be able to confront your accuser, examine witnesses, challenge the state's case, present your own defenses, and have the state try to prove the charges against you beyond a reasonable doubt. Are you prepared to give up all these rights?
Yes, ma'am.
How do you plead to the charges brought against you?
I'll plead guilty, ma'am.
Your sentence is 12 months to serve 28 days, credit for time served 14 days. You have a year and a half, you got 11 and a half months left on probation. While on probation, you will report to probation at 132 Mitchell Street in Atlanta, Georgia, and you must report by next Tuesday. You understand?
Yes, ma'am.
You cannot return to the Walgreens at 25 Peachtree Street. You cannot be on the sidewalk. You cannot be in his parking lots. You can only be across the street or at least 200 yards away. You understand?
I don't even know there you go. Walgreens, I don't think that's who it is.
If you see a Walgreens on 25 Peachtree Road, run away.
That's what I'm telling you, man. I will run away.
While you're on probation, you also need to complete a theft prevention class at your expense, 60 hours of voluntary community service at any nonprofit agency, and not consume any illegal drugs and no alcohol.
Yes, ma'am.
I'll waive your probation fees, but you must report to probation every month for the next 11 and a half months.
Yeah, ma'am. Okay, thank you.
Good luck. All right, our screen is still not on. We are having technical issues, Mr. Jordan? All right. I have Miss Brittany over here, so we're still, no, not yet, have a seat, have a seat. So I'm gonna move on to Jamal Painter. Do we have Jamal Painter? This is the time to start your video. Hopefully you're caught. Oh, that's smart, Mr. Jordan. All right. Mr. Jamal Painter's case is 22 CR 001-004F, accused of simple assault, domestic family violence, disorderly conduct, and battery, family violence, allegedly on November 26, 2020. There was a failure to appear in court on June 1st, 2022, and a bench warrant was issued. Mr. Painter filed a request to set aside the bench warrant on June 10th. Mr. Painter, you have a right to remain silent. Anything you say about the facts of the case, your statements can and will be used against you. You have a right to an attorney. And Mr. Howard, are you representing him?
No, Judge, I believe.
Yeah, I'm representing him, Judge.
All right. Representing Mr. Painter is Mr. Zach Finling. All right, Mr. Finling, what is the reason to set aside the bench warrant?
Yes, Judge. Judge, if you don't mind, give me 1 second. I got a million tabs open, just trying to find my notes. I just
right.
took. Sorry, I apologize. 1 moment.
Mr. Painter, you can put your screen on mute while your attorney argues.
Yes, Judge. So, as previously stated, are asking for the bench warrant to be set aside for Mr. Painter. Mr. Painter is an extremely involved father. He's a man that works full-time. He has 2 sons, 14 and 13, each of which he has recently gained full custody of. And he plays a pivotal role, obviously, in their lives and also supporting them. As we know, he's in the car right now, and he's in the car actually on the way to work. And he is originally from New Jersey. That's where all of his family is from. So his kids are kind of all he has here. He did miss the court date. He stated that he couldn't get into his mailbox. His apartment complex was doing renovating. At that point, he wasn't able to get the key to go into his mailbox. When he did get into his mailbox, it was the day after. And as soon as he realized he missed the court date, he made sure to get in contact with the court and was proactive thereafter. He obviously does not have any problem with the no further contact. He hasn't had contact and has zero interest in contact. So we are asking once again, Judge, for the bench warrant to be set aside.
Ms. Mitchell?
Your Honor, we have no objections in this case, being that he only FTA'd once, and that was January 1st, and he reached back out to the court June 1st, reached back out June 10th. So we have no objections, Your Honor.
All right. His current address is at Godby Road?
That's correct, Judge.
All right. I will set aside the bench warrant. The next issue I want to address is arraigning the case. Mr. Finling, this case will be going back to Judge Richardson, but he failed to appear at his plea and arraignment calendar. I'm just going to assume right off the bat that he's pleading not guilty and have the case arraigned for trial. Is that correct?
That's correct, Judge.
And do you waive a reading of the accusation?
I do.
All right. Mr. Painter, you've been accused of misdemeanor offenses, simple assault, domestic violence, disorderly conduct, and battery domestic violence, allegedly occurring in Fulton County, Georgia on November 26, 2020. Upon your entry of a not guilty plea, the case will be scheduled for trial before Judge Eric Richardson. At the time of the trial, the prosecutor has the complete burden to prove the charges against you beyond a reasonable doubt and overcome your legal presumption of innocence. If the state prevails, you could be convicted and face a penalty of up to a year in prison and or up to $1,000 fine for each convicted offense. Given this information, how do you plead?
Not guilty.
All right. Your case has been arraigned. Judge Richardson will be informed of the matter. Mr. Finling, please submit a proposed order setting aside the bench warrant, noting that the case has been arraigned and that Mr. Painter will have to report to Judge Richardson's court whenever summoned. That concludes this matter. Thank you. All right, Mr. Painter, now you are free to go. Good luck and be safe.
Thank you. Appreciate it, Judge.
No problem. Thank you. All right, Ms. Brittany, if you'd like to take the podium, please. Mr. Finling, are you also representing Ms. Jamal Painter? Excuse me, Ms. Brittany Raquel Bird?
Yes, Judge.
If you can see her on the screen, she is in the courtroom G33 at the podium. Yes?
Okay. Yes, I do see her.
Okay, good. Ms. Bird's case number is 21 CR 007-446E, in which she was accused of simple battery allegedly occurring on December 9, 2021 in Fulton County, Georgia. A bench warrant was issued against Ms. Bird on June 10th for failure to appear in court on May 25th, 2022. She filed a request to set aside the bench warrant. And Ms. Bird, you have a right to remain silent about the facts of the case. Anything you say, your statements can and will be used against you. You have a right to an attorney, and you can hear your attorney, Zach Finley.
Yes, ma'am.
Have you had a chance to speak with him?
Yes, ma'am.
All right, so he's going to argue your motion, and then we will address your case, okay?
Yes, ma'am.
Ms. Tortorella, do y'all have any objection to setting aside the bench warrant?
I'm just looking at her history. She only has one cycle and she has failed to appear. It looks like just one time, Your Honor, before Judge Morrison, before he, she decided to issue a bench warrant against her. Given her history, Your Honor, I will not object to the bench warrant being set aside. The only thing that I do ask is that she assure that it's her responsibility that her address be updated with the courts. So that way she gets her notices.
Right. I have a Scott Street in Atlanta, Georgia. Is that you correct?
Yes, ma'am.
Hmm?
Yes, ma'am.
What's the apartment number?
30.
30?
Yes, ma'am.
All right. So it looks like we have a correct address on file. Mr. Finley, you can go ahead and submit a proposed order setting aside the bench warrant. I don't know if her case, let me see. Looks like the case was never arraigned. Mr. Finley, Ms. Bird, arraigning the case means that you would be entering a plea of not guilty and the case will be scheduled for trial. This does not exclude you from the opportunity of taking a plea, of being qualified to pretrial diversion if the prosecutor offers that. Is that something you'd like to consider?
So
Entering a plea of not guilty. Go ahead, Mr. Finley.
no, I was just gonna say, Ms. Bird, I know we spoke about that there was a plea offer, and I know you stated you wanted to plead not guilty. So if that's still the case.
Yes, it is. Yes, sir, it is.
Okay. So do you waive a reading of the accusation, Mr. Finley?
Yes, Judge.
All right. Ms. Bird, you've been accused of simple battery allegedly in Fulton County, Georgia on December 9th, 2021. You are legally presumed to be innocent of this charge, and upon your entry of a not guilty plea, the case will be scheduled for trial. At the time of the trial, the prosecution has the complete burden to prove the charge against you beyond a reasonable doubt. If they succeed, you could be convicted and face a penalty of up to 1 year in prison and or up to $1,000 fine. Given this information, how do you plead?
Not guilty.
To repeat?
Not understanding.
Repeat.
Not understanding, ma'am.
Okay. Upon your entry, you know the charges that are brought against you?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, and the alleged incident date is December 9th, 2021 in Fulton County.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, this is an active criminal case against you, charging you with a misdemeanor offense, and you are legally presumed to be innocent of the charge until the case goes to trial, where the prosecutor has the complete responsibility and burden to prove the charge against you beyond a reasonable doubt.
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, you will have the assistance of counsel at trial to make sure that your rights are preserved, but the prosecution has the complete burden to prove the charge against you beyond a reasonable doubt. If they do not carry their burden of proof, the judge or the jury may enter a verdict of not guilty and the case will be over. However, if the prosecution does carry its burden of proof and proves the charge against you beyond a reasonable doubt, the judge or the jury could enter a verdict of guilty and you could be convicted of the offense and sentenced to up to 1 year in prison and or up to $1,000 fine. So it could be prison or a fine or a combination of both. Given this information, how do you plead?
Not guilty.
All right, I heard not guilty. Mr. Finling, are you satisfied?
That's what I heard as well, Judge.
This case has been arraigned. In other words, it will start the track of moving on to be scheduled for trial. Make sure your address is correct at all times, that you comply with the conditions of your bond at all times, and always appear in court when summoned.
Yes, ma'am.
You're free to go.
Thank you.
All right, on the bench warrant calendar, both bench warrants were set aside. On the add-on calendar, position number 1, William Boehm is reset to June 30th, unless Mr. Finling requests an addition, further extension, then please get in touch with the clerk's office. Position number 2, Coleman, was a negotiated plea. Position number 3, Palmer. What's the announcement, Mr. Howard?
That was Ms. Palmer, Judge.
Yeah, Dacia
Yes, and that
Palmer.
we set to next Thursday's SAP calendar.
All right, so that was going to be reset to June 23rd. That's on the add-on calendar. On the state all-purpose calendar, number 1, Angwin is a plea. Position 2 was arraigned and further notice for trial. 3, Beecham has been loaned out. How far out should I reset this case?
If we could do next Thursday, Judge.
He's being held without a bond on violation of parole.
Okay.
I don't know where he's being loaned out. So, okay, we'll do June 23rd. Position 4, Braggs was a plea. Position 5 and 6 were pleas handled by Judge Edie. Position 7, Carmichael, was a plea. Position 8, Fambro, is arraigned and further notice for trial, bond modified to $12.50 total. Position 9, Fernandez, is reset 2 weeks. We don't need a Spanish interpreter. Position 10, Figaro, is a plea. 11, Gillian, is a plea.
And Judge,
12,
excuse me, Judge, if we could just make sure that 9 is reset to the competency calendar, not the SAP calendar.
for which one?
Position 9, Mr. Fernandez.
All right. Fernandez is reset at 11 a.m. to the competency calendar 2 weeks out. That would be 30th. Okay.
Yes.
Position 12 and 13, both, position 12, Akeem Harris is arraigned and granted a signature bond through the jail. Position 13, Keola Harris, is a plea. 14 and 15 were pleas, Helm. 16, Huggins filed a waiver of arraignment and further notice for trial. 17 and 18 were pleas, both Johnsons, unrelated. 19, Jolly is a plea. Jones, 20 is a plea. 21, King is reset to what date?
I think we decided on July the 14th, I believe, Ms. Crawford, is that correct?
Yes, Your Honor, that's correct.
Is this a competency calendar at 11 a.m. or SAP?
Competency calendar.
All right, so this is reset to competency at 11 a.m. 22, Lockett's a plea. 23, McLean is a plea. 24, Merkel is a plea. 25, Thompson is arraigned and further notice for trial. 26, Tillman's a plea. 27, Towns is a plea. 28 and 29, Usury and Wheeler respectively have filed waiver of arraignments and a further notice for trial. Position 30, Williams, is rescheduled to June 30th. Is that competency or SAP?
SAP will be fine for that,
Okay,
Judge.
SAP. All right, moving on to our competency calendar. We are going to put this in a breakout, and if y'all can put your hands up as to who needs to be in the breakout. Myself, Mr. Howard, Ms. Crawford, Ms. Kia Burgess, and Ms. Thomas with probation.
No, I'm saying bye, Judge.
Oh, you're saying bye.
Yes,
Okay.
ma'am.
All right, bye-bye.
Okay.
And I have R. Thomas at the Georgia Regional Hospital. Could we,
Yes.
and our interpreter, may she be excused, or Mr. Finling, do you still need her services?
We do not, Derek, we're.
Madam
we-
Interpreter, I think we're done with what we
with
need.
Fernandez, okay, all right.
All right, thank you. All right.
Then,
Thank
Your
you.
Honor, that concludes my business for today. May I be excused?
Yes, all counsel who have otherwise completed, you're all free to go, including the court reporter. And Ms. Harrison, you're free to go as well. Anybody else who wants to leave?
Thank you,
Like
Judge.
to run? Okay,
All right, thank you, Judge.
all
Thank
right.
you, Your Honor.
We can stop the live stream and the recording and be placed in the breakout.